Good morning, everybody. This is Alex St. John, aka The Saint, streaming to you live from the Playcast Barn. It is 4:33 a.m. in the morning, and I think I might have a new theme for the show occasionally. We'll have episodic themes. I think I'm going to call this one "Angry Encels." I got such a strong reaction from angry incels, and the last time I used the term that apparently it's a great source of likes, subscribes, and angry comments, which we love, right? Nothing like engagement. And what's YouTube all about if not getting your blood boiling for no rational reason? A few episodes ago, I characterized the demographic of of fading Gen X and millennial gamers. Adult males who live in their parents' basements, haven't got mortgages, apparently serious jobs, wives or girlfriends. So all they do is just fume about what's going on in gaming and on consoles. Um, on YouTube, and they have millions of subscribers, so there's a lot of them. And the funny thing is, and they get really, and they know who they are. So if I just say, straw man, angry incels, I'll get a bunch of people. I haven't named anybody. I didn't say it was you, but I'll get just grief on my channel. And vengeful, insulting comments. So apparently, when you say the word "angry incel," there's a set of angry incels, and you know who you are, living in your mother's basements and raging about your Xbox games and the price of your your Steam games and watching gaming news constantly. And then fuming about it, and you feel a little bit guilty, or you wouldn't be up here ranting at me for using the term. The funny thing is that I actually use the term in a completely separate, self-deprecating way, because, of course, here I am out in my barn at 4:30 in the morning talking to myself about gaming. Back in the old days, before it became disparaging, back in the 80s, guys like us were called nerds, and we didn't have a lot of market value back then until Bill Gates started making us all rich, and then suddenly we found wives and girlfriends successfully. But it did take a while. Now, tech nerds are cool, and everybody knows it, so it's not even an insult. But there are several YouTube streamers out there that I like to call that are some of my favorite streamers. I watch them all the time, not being pejorative, but they do characterize that angry Encel gamer demographic. And what's funny about them is they're just so angry and passionate. Again, I know it's good YouTube content. Apparently, everybody likes it. Maybe it's just the 17-year-old boys who love them. But they're up there ranting. They're deep in the detail and news about everything going on in the game industry in real time, and they're not in the industry like I am. So I actually make a living making game tech. Just oh darn, am I being pejorative about angry incels again? I'm sorry. No, I'm not. They're up ranting about games, and just way too passionate, way more passionate than anybody who can grow a beard ought to be able to be if it's not their freaking job at this age. But the funny thing is that they're great to watch, because what they're reacting to, you go, oh, that they know before anybody else. They're the canary in the coal mine when it comes to any change in the fabric of the game industry. Long before those of us on the inside are talking about it, they're ranting on it within 15 minutes before it hits the press. They know first. So, ironically, they're a great source of news and information. You hear it from them first before you hear it anywhere else. Even if they have no idea what they're talking about, and the analysis is terrible. But again, I recognize it's good rage porn on YouTube. But I do have a couple favorites of mine, so I figured, given what's going on Xbox today, I get up there and comment, because nobody likes original YouTube content better than comment videos. So I'm gonna show you what's going on, what's going on at Xbox, because it is great setup, getting just to react to it. Reaction videos, that's what they're called. But I'm going to introduce you to a couple of my favorite angry incels. So if you're an angry incel and upset that you're being identified by the Saint, here, let me minimize this too, just so that there's a little less barn and a little more. Here we go. Let me just get in here and move myself to the corner. And let's meet my favorite angry Encel subscribers. Let's see here. Hang on a second. Bam. There we go. This guy's my favorite. He's a little lesser known apparently, but I do like him a lot. He's got a whole meter to him here. Let's see, and turn on which camera? There we go. I know how to use scenes. Yeah. All right, here we go. Let's see what the angry Encels are talking about today.
You know, I have no idea what Xbox and Microsoft are doing. Literally, this entire $4 trillion company has no clue what to do in this space
but he
of
does.
Video games.
He has
and
a
for
clue.
A brief, small moment of just a few months, we had the vision. Everyone had the thought and the idea of what Xbox could in fact
Path
be.
of Exile.
And what
I know the
happens,
team. I'm
the
friends
last
with the
48
founders.
hours
Great
have
guys.
been an
They're all based
absolute
in New Zealand.
disaster, nightmare zone of Chernobyl qualifications all over the internet because Xbox dared to do the one thing everybody wanted them to do: have an exclusive game. No, I'm kidding. That's not really what's going on. Literally, people are in fact getting angry about Xbox making Gears exclusive, and yeah, we've seen the Xbox tax in effect, but honestly, this goes into a far more serious manner overall. You see, for some reason, I don't even know why this is happening. Every single time that Xbox does a good thing, the bad news immediately follows.
I told everybody who was angry about hiring Asha Sharma, just give her a second to find her office in the bathroom. No reason to rage about hiring her. There's something she's going to do that's going to disappoint you for real. That'll be maybe legitimate.
You're even getting a console exclusive game in Gears of War, doing exactly what the fans voted for them to do: provide exclusive content
the fans.
to their platform.
And here's the problem, and this is the problem Xbox really has, is this demographic, these fans, because Xbox has been around for 25 years, so the teenage gamers who grew up on it, they're up here on YouTube thinking they're still the customer.
And basically stating that they're not even profitable at that point where they need to be. We found out about a 3% accountability margin, which is nowhere even close to what's actually been happening.
So this is where they go right off the rails, because like I said, they live in their mother's basement. They haven't had real jobs they've never made a game. They've never run a game studio. They're not former Xbox or current Xbox employees. They have no idea how the game industry economics or the business really works, but they're business experts on YouTube. So they think that, and they talk about what they feel is just tautologically obvious, and don't realize that it's naive, totally misinformed, and often highly contradictory. And this guy's about to contradict himself severely. Watch him go. So he gets 3% profit margin, less than a Safeway grocery store makes, and then at Microsoft, and that's probably with the Activision edition, which added a whole bunch of profit to Xbox because they were negative up until the Activision acquisition. If you just ignore the 65 or 75 billion they paid for it. But so he's about to contradict himself. Watch him go. Here we go. 3% margins, totally unacceptable for a business. Now he goes on, I love his shows, he goes on raving about how greedy they are to milk all the money out of you they can in every other episode, and anger and greed in the game industry. And at no point that he says this with total straight face does it dawn on him they're not making any money. Then that's why. So you greed. Usually you go, oh, we're making so much money, let's make more. Any more way could we need it? They can't turn a profit making games the way this guy wants them to make games, or trying to. But he doesn't get any self-reflection when he says this. So here he goes. It's going to occur. He's getting the memo. The Xbox doesn't make any money. They lose money. Here we go.
And now, after yesterday's news, the entire internet has been exploding as to what Xbox is going to be doing within the next couple of weeks. Hell, maybe even the next couple of days.
Layoffs.
Buckle up and get ready, because this one is going to be a blast. Where Games Radar says this, Microsoft CEO says, quote, "We have to turn this into a sustainable business amid changes to Xbox." This was on June 15th.
So all these guys rating how evil and greedy the game industry is. These people aren't making any money.
The Xbox brand, new reports claim that the company might part ways with Microsoft down the road. Polymarket also said yesterday as well that shareholders are going to sue Microsoft for alleging that it hid slowing Azure growth and billions in AI infrastructure spending.
Oh boy.
Jez Corden also reported yesterday that Xbox is gearing up to join PayPal and Klarna's Buy Now, Pay Later program, letting you.
All right, stop right there. So he's setting up, there's all kinds of stuff going on, but I want to hark back. So what did he just say? What did he just throw in there? This matters. They signed up to PayPal's credit program for financing electronics and hardware. Why? Because the next generation console is not going to be $700, right? They're telling you. Asha Sharma came out and said, "Look, the specs of the next generation Helix is today. If you went and bought one as a PC, it's like a $4,000 console right now, right?" And Microsoft can't afford to subsidize. Without the Activision acquisition, they were losing money on every Xbox sale and not turning a profit. There wasn't 30% margins. There wasn't 3% margins. It was negative. They donated $20 billion, lost it, burned it, making games you love at a loss. That's how greedy Microsoft was. So he's going to rage about greed. They're all going to rage about greed. These guys are Microsoft's losing money hand over fist on Xbox, has been for a long time, and it's a paper over kind of thing to go. Let's acquire Activision for $75 billion and make 3% profit margins. But so this PayPal deal, they're not joking around. They're telling you, this is going to be a very expensive console. And they're also saying we can't subsidize it anymore. I read from you in my last episode, Asha Sharma going, we've been subsidizing Xbox to the tune of $20 billion. We can't do it anymore. So we have to, if there's a next generation console, we can't write it off. And the specs for the Helix and the PlayStation 6, minimum. I know, and this would be, and they're going, well, minimum if RAM and GPU prices stayed where they're at, $2 or $3 grand piece of hardware, right? You go, okay, it's a year out in the future, so maybe it's effectively depreciated a bit by then because it's not the latest hardware, but it's not the latest hardware from the market components point of view. Certainly, it's the new Helix or PlayStation 6. But they're saying, hey, in a year from now, it's going to have lost some money. It's going to have dropped in price. If RAM and GPU prices weren't going through the roof, it'd be a $2,000 console maybe. Nothing like $700, totally unaffordable. And the way things are going, as Asha Sharma said, it could be a $5,000 console. So we're talking about not a difference between is it $1,000, is it $1,200? You're talking about a multi-$1,000 console here. Something's got to change. So Microsoft, knowing this, they go either, hey, we're going to stick to that plan and make a multi-$1,000 console, or everybody's going to have to finance their consoles like a car. We better do a deal with PayPal. So that is what's going on. So not only is Microsoft sending you the memo that they can't lose another $20 billion on the next-gen console, and if you want there to be an Xbox that's state-of-the-art like the PlayStation, and Sony wants to make one, and you want Steam to make one, they're going to have to, there's a massive price surge or shortage in components, and the price is going to be silly, just unacceptably silly. So you're going to have to finance your game consoles in the future, people. Here's the memo. Here it is happening. All right, let's keep going. Which, again, justifiable reason to be outraged. And you can be mad at Microsoft for not taking a loss on consoles while screaming about how greedy they are for charging $80 for a game. But this is why, right? Okay, here, and this is, by the way, they lost $20 billion on the Xbox before the RAM and GPU shortage. That was just back in the great good old days when hardware was cheap and they couldn't make money on it. Well, just when you look at the numbers now, it's hopeless. It's a serious situation out there. I bought a device the other day that I was testing with so I was testing a Helix-like PC configuration for Playcast, and I went and said I looked up the specifications and talked to my people and estimated what the equivalent AMD PC and GPU would look like. Went out and bought it, and I bought it for $3,700 and some dollars a couple weeks ago, and the same piece of hardware is on Amazon now for $5 grand. It just jumped $1,500 in price because it had DDR5 memory in it. These days, DDR5 memory is so rare, so expensive that you can go up on Amazon and you go buy low-end $1,000 PCs with DDR5 memory, and then you rip out the RAM and resell it for more money than the computer's worth. So you'll find on Amazon it's shrinking fast. PCs that were put into production that have DDR5 memory that are still priced with their retail pricing because they were made with lower cost memory, and the people selling them didn't jack up the price on them. But the price of that RAM's gotten so high that if you can find people selling last year's computer with DDR5 memory, that's a maybe one good way to get a bargain. Anyway, let's keep going. Let's listen to our angry incel.
Spread the cost of Xbox purchases across weeks or even months, quote, interest free.
Yeah.
And also, Xbox Game Studio boss Craig Duncan and Xbox Chief of Staff Louise O'Connor are leaving the company as well, according to Shinobi.
Yeah. Because here
Brother,
come the
what are
layoffs.
we even doing right now? The last 24 to 48 hours has been absolutely insane. And this all stemmed right after that great showcase they had just about a week back. Literally, we're watching as Microsoft is saying, hey, you guys aren't profitable, even though we've been seeing Microsoft themselves siphon money out of every other department and dump even more into AI. Don't forget about that $90 billion Satya Nadella pumped into their Copilot program as well, and the insane contracts that they've been doing with OpenAI as well.
So just to be clear, this has got to think about the meetings they're having at Microsoft. Why can't they make a game console for less than $5,000 now? Because they are buying all the GPUs and memory for Azure data centers. Microsoft's doing it. So the Xbox guys can't get the components they need to make consumer Xboxes because Satya and the Azure guys are buying them all up from you. Same company. Same guys causing that market phenomena effectively. Just interesting to point out. So you got to believe those meetings inside the company have to be really interesting. The number one reason that Asha Sharma is perfectly qualified for this day and age of Xbox console is she's close to Satya from the AI group. If anybody could go to Satya Nadella and say, "Hey, please, could I beg a few GPUs and memory chips from the Azure team?" She might have the clout to do that because she's got the AI background to go begging for the hardware from the company that's buying it by the truckload for their data centers. So that's why she may really be qualified to make the next gen console. Is she may know who to ask at Microsoft for all the chips they can't afford.
Literally not the best case overall. Then you got rumors that Microsoft is going to spin off Xbox into a subsidiary, just like either GitHub or LinkedIn, trying to remove Xbox from their books as well. Then you have the entire payment model going around being like, hey, bro, don't worry. Those microtransactions in video games you want to buy now because you want to support the devs, we're going to let you put them on layaway or buy them through Klarna interest-free. And we all know that's a massive scam overall. And then finally, studio heads and actual game corporation heads leaving the Xbox.
So when he said we all know it's a massive scam overall, do we all know that? Do you guys know why some of the layaway programs or the interest-free programs for her hardware purchasing are a massive scam? It's because if you miss a payment, then all the 0% financing terms vanish, and suddenly it goes to 28% interest on all your subsequent payments. So it's only 0% interest provided you make exactly every payment for 2 years exactly on time. I won't name names as the companies that engage in that practice, but it is pretty toxic, and they all go through one central financing company that has offered 0% financing for lots of different products and companies out there, and they're very gotcha. That said, there are hardware companies and electronics companies that have true 0% layaway programs, and yeah, it'll ding your credit if you're late on your bills too much, but they don't go, the 0% financing doesn't shoot through the roof. Gotcha. If you ever late on a payment. So that I speculate that that's what he's referring to that we're all supposed to know about, but because that's the scam I'm aware of, but I don't know what he's referring to because apparently we all know it. Maybe I got it right. We'll see.
Studio, all happening within 24 to 48 hours. What? It's actually absurd.
Now, see, he's surprised, right? I told you so. So the problem is, and they don't get it. The gamers don't get it. Oh, what's going on? They go, oh, Phil Spencer's depressed and retiring, and they ripped out his Xbox is dying. Microsoft's going to shoot it all. And then, oh, they hired an AI woman to run the console. She's not a gamer. We hate her for some reason we can't specify. And I said, wait a minute, give her a chance. She'll give you a reason to hate her. Microsoft will. And she's got to be, and she's the one with the job who's got to deliver the news. So don't worry, they'll give you a real reason to hate her. You don't have to make one up now. Don't jump the gun. You can have a rational reason to be outraged instead of just an irrational misogynist one, if you will. So then here we go. Here's the day. Um, and then, of course, you hear all this good news because all the game and all the angry incels went berserk when they hired Asha Sharma, going, you didn't hire a gamer dude like Phil Spencer who lost $20 billion making us the games we bitched about anyway, actually, and lost money while doing it, and we called him greedy. We didn't listen to that guy. We want another one of those. We're not happy with Asha. And so Microsoft went on a PR campaign to help sell all the angry Encels Asha and deliver some, hey, we support Xbox, we love, don't worry, we're going to make a Helix. It's going to be massively overpowered, which means it'll be really expensive. Don't worry, relax, relax, right? And then after they finally delivered enough good news, it's like, hey, there's this business reality. We don't make, we got, could we make some money doing this, please? Right? And where now everybody's head comes off again. Just when they're talking nicely about Asha, boom. And it was coming the whole time, and it's coming for a really good reason. Microsoft Xbox is a 25, $26 billion a year business model disaster. Net 3% margins, lost $20 billion. That's the number they admit to. Not making money in the AI era. Why doesn't Microsoft shoot that dog and walk away? Right? And I've said there's some interesting and probably some good business reasons for it. And maybe some good strategic ones, but at that price point and for a quarter of a decade, it starts getting a little thin. And the problem is, if you know that you're in the wrong track, you're in the wrong direction. I did a whole episode of this going, isn't it funny how if you look at Apple and Microsoft in the game business, it's almost like they're in the wrong positions. Apple, the consumer friendly, great user experience, prime, we care about your creativity and empowering you and how you feel. You would think they would be the ones running an Xbox like brand that everybody loved and was endeared to, making great legendary games. You'd think Apple would be in that business, and you think Microsoft would be going, yeah, we just run an app store, we don't give a shit, and we make $50 billion a year. We get 70% of the money, we take 30% of the transaction side, and we take another 30% in all the desperate little game companies paying our platform to carry ads for their games. That's the Apple model. And Apple's game business, with no gaming CEO and not making a single game, is the size of Xbox and Sony's game business combined. That's how big. Google's Android game business is bigger than either of them. Maybe bigger than Apple's. Google's not super forthcoming about that. So that's how weird it is to live in the era where back in my day it was Mac versus PC ads, where the Apple guys were the cool hip kid, and the PC guys were the nerdy four-eyed dad body type guy who didn't have any clue. And somehow Microsoft and Apple switched roles, and Microsoft's got the beloved gaming platform, trying to make hit titles and trying to make ends and sacrificing profitability for trying to make great games and make all these angry incels happy, and Apple's just letting schlocking out crappy mobile game gambling games and gotcha games all day long and making more money than Xbox and PC combined. And that's why he's going to commit it, and the other next guy I'm going to show you are going to commit the sin. They're going to go, why don't they just? It's just like it's totally obvious. Like you're going to make so much money if you just make a fucking good game. And it's not true. There's so much more money in making bad games. It's the worst mistake Microsoft made is giving a shit about making good games. And so it really pains me to hear these guys slagging Microsoft for having these huge studio investments, making mega expensive AAA titles for their platform, struggle and can't make a profit at it, and shutting them down and getting slagged when Apple's over there slurking out the worst game models, the worst gaming experience ever, and making more money than all of them combined at huge margins. So there's so much more money to be made in bad games, and I'm not advocating. I don't want that. I'm not happy about it. I'm just saying, you morons who get up there and shout this stuff and demand it of Microsoft, you're demanding that they commit business suicide. Because if they actually listen, if they did what you scream about, which is listen to them, you put them out of business. You're putting them out of business now because they're trying to please you. Because the truth is that the Xbox team was founded by a bunch of us angry Encels, gamer dudes. And we made games for ourselves. And we were young and could barely grow a beard. We were the gaming audience and we were the majority. 25 years later, aside from those of us who are still in the business, everybody else grew up, got jobs, got lives, mortgages, kids, and have bigger things to worry about than they don't have 500 hours a week to spend playing games over and over and being this obsessed about it, except the ones who are YouTube celebrities and have gray in their beards and are this engaged with the game industry. So times have changed. The audience of old Xbox is gone. Even though there may be a few of them left at Microsoft in the Xbox team, that's where that group and all of our fond memories came from. Those people are gone, the audience is gone, the customers are gone, and the business never turned a profit. So ranting and raving and pretending that they're representative of the Xbox audience when they're not anymore, except for these guys, there's a handful of you left, dying and aging or growing up and packing up and leaving mom's basement and getting married and getting a mortgage, and there's none left. So it's a dying generation of customers and fans of the Xbox. I'm sorry, I miss it. I'm nostalgic. I love my Commodore 64 too. I still do, but just saying, times have changed. And so if Microsoft listens to these guys, they're going to go out of business. And Microsoft listened to them for too long. But here we go. Let's listen to them some more.
What is happening with this company every single time. They are literally the embodiment of this meme 100%. Every time we're so back with a great showcase, right into we're so over, because every single studio is going to get shut down.
Yeah.
People are getting fired. The company's getting spun off, and everything's going to hell in a handbasket. And
it's not true. So let's say, and the problem is, if you're not a business person, if you're not an executive, if you've never run shit, this is confusing as hell to you, which I get. So I'm going to try to explain it for all the angry Encels. If you can contain your rage and not make snarky, dumb little comments in the comments section and think I give a shit, because it just brings me happiness. Go ahead. I think it's hilarious. But just listen for a second. Just listen. Yeah, I know you're here because you're angry, but just listen. They got a $27 billion mess, massive bloated studios, overhired, and the market changed. And the demographics changed, and the economics of making a console changed. They're way out of whack. If you want anything, if you want them to succeed, and they have a charter to do it, the problem is it's like turning the Titanic on a dime, right? They're like, oh, the guy out in the deck with binoculars, right? He's like, whoa, wow, way over there on the horizon, 10 miles away is an iceberg. We need to veer 1 inch to the left. All right, Ming, 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 Ming. Right, call the engine room on the 1920s phone, 1900s phone. Yeah, we need to turn 1 inch to the left, right? Nah, right, 5, 10 miles of warning and still hit the iceberg, right? That's what happens when you have a giant bloated organization with tens of thousands of employees and studios everywhere. You can't change, you can't pivot, you can't react to a market that is moving this fast with all the people and bloat and obligations around. So even if if you see the future and you're trying to make a real go and you got a charter to do it, sadly you got to turn the Titanic, you got to chop it down to a speedboat, right? Or I'm going to switch analogies, right? You got a hot air balloon, you're trying to make it over the mountains. You got to throw the sandbags and the ballast overboard. It's your only chance. So there was inevitably a signal that Microsoft is committed to Xbox, that they are going to try to make a major platform, that Asha does have the support of Satya Nadella to make a go of it, is that they're doing these layoffs and they're making these hard cut choices. because this is devastating for morale at Microsoft. It's devastating for their stock price. Satya doesn't want Xbox layoffs in the news constantly when he's trying to build his AI visionary company of the future to investors. He doesn't want that nonsense. The only they just shut it down one quick. The point when they fired Phil Spencer and Sarah, I mean they retired. um, when they laid them, they went retired, sailed off into the sunset. Is when they would have shot the whole division, just kill it all, get it over with, get it out of everybody's systems, clear the press, and woo, AI shiny future. That's what Microsoft would have done. They didn't do that, so they're taking the hits. They're going to the Xbox showcases, getting everybody excited, and then yoink, massive layoffs. And that's because they're going to hit an iceberg, and they know it. And they sent, before they just started making the layoffs and warning, Matt and Asha sent a memo, which I read to you in the last episode, where they told you there's an iceberg we're going to hit. Everybody's going to die in the Atlantic and freeze to death. All the bearded Encels in their mother's basements are going to be let down. There will be no future Xbox if we don't turn this ship. And we can't turn on a dime. We're too big and bloated and too out of position. So the first thing they got to do is shed a lot of ballast. And so there goes the ballast. That was inevitable, and it is necessary, and is actually the strongest signal Microsoft that we see of Microsoft's being totally committed to having a big Xbox future. So again, I see indication and strong evidence that Microsoft's committed to making this work. And the angry Encels, again, the weird thing that the angry Encels should deal with. I know it's good YouTube shtick, so they have an investment in being this way anyway, no matter what the news is. But the one thing they should realize is, hey, we're not the customer anymore. We're dying breed. So if we want AAA games, we need Xbox to have a huge, broad market with a huge, broad customer base in order for the surviving market of developers making AAA games I want to have enough market size to be able to reach a large enough market to justify those massive budget games you guys love. So you're not going to get any of them if there isn't an Xbox at all, if there isn't a platform at all that can support them. So, you need Microsoft to miss that iceberg if you're a fan, or you're really this enraged about, games as a grown ass man. But let's continue. So I hate to say it, but the 100 days of we're laying people off, that needed to happen. It needs to happen if they're going to miss the iceberg. And they told you what the iceberg is. Microsoft's being very transparent with everybody. If you listen, if you know how to hear the message you're getting.
That's the crazier part about all of this. For some reason, everyone's saying that Xbox is a dead brand. Nobody buys Xbox games. Nobody buys Xbox consoles. Everybody sure as shit loves to talk about Xbox. But here's the thing, in my opinion, this is exactly what so many people have been wanting. A clean start, a fresh slate. And the problem is they're going to have to burn practically everything in that catalog in order to be successful.
Oh, he actually gets it.
Asha Sharma's job.
This isn't the confused one. This guy's actually kind of smart.
Scalpel and remove all the pieces that are draining their bank accounts.
Yeah.
And honestly, one of them should be removed months ago. And that one is this dude right here. I'm sorry.
He's your only ally, dummy.
The reason and the biggest thorn in the backside of Xbox since the very
because
beginning.
He's buying all your chips.
He's also been ruining Microsoft as well.
He's making everybody billions
in AI, basically pushing forward the entire incessant behavior of that industry. I've also said how Satya has been known to go ahead and say they have cold racks full of servers, RAM, and everything else doing nothing because they don't have the power to even turn them on in the first place. And literally Microsoft helping to create the actual RAM crisis that they are a part of is exactly what's putting Xbox in this position. It's like a snake eating its own tail. Literally Ouroboros in every facet of the word. But the thing is, you guys know that when I talk about something, there's always more to the story. And the thing is, unfortunately, there's going to be a lot more bad news coming down the pipeline for what Xbox and Microsoft are going to be doing with this brand. And sadly, it's probably going to involve a lot of the studios you may in fact like. Because according to Wario64 on Twitter saying this, according to Bloomberg, several Xbox studios, including Compulsion Games, Ninja Theory, and Double Fine, are in active negotiations with Xbox to spin off as they try to avoid closure.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I literally don't get it.
I'll
Y'all went
explain.
out and bought these studios. Then it took these studios multiple years, not 2, not 3, we're talking about like 4 to 5, in order to make any games that are sustainable as part of their projects. Then those games don't sell. They go back and they put their games on the PlayStation 5. Guess what? Those games don't even sell there. And the problem is they're going to keep cutting everything down, not because Xbox isn't profitable, but because they have to make sure there's enough money in there for Satya to burn away on his stupid.
Well, wait, did you remember the start of this when he was like they're only making 3% margins? Remember the part where Matt and Asha told you that Xbox lost $20 billion? So he just in the same episode, he gets they're not making money. And then suddenly it's a greed thing again because that's kind of his shtick, right? Okay. um, so and then he doesn't get, and he just said the whole, hey, they got to chop it down to make change. He seems like he gets it, and then suddenly, they're greedy, and Asha's just got to siphon all their profits, which are none. They've actually been subsidizing them. Not only are they not making money to siphon off to pay for Azure, they're sucking $20 billion away that Satya would like to spend on Azure. So it's just baggage is what they are. And he even said he started out the episode, he gets it, and then it's just confusing. I can't get it. I actually think this guy's probably smart. He just knows what his audience wants to hear. So they contradicting himself is they're not bright enough to go 2+2 here. But I got to believe that he can't miss the irony of claiming that Satya's being greedy. And so you go, they just lost $20 billion and there's an Xbox at all because that guy, when he took the job, could have shot it when he knew they were losing money and everybody was speculating about it. And he didn't. He kept it around. He kept Phil Spencer around. He let him make another console and lose another, $10 billion. So Satya's, and he didn't, and he just had a chance to fire it and he didn't. He brought in Asha Sharma. So he doubled down, right? So Satya's, kind of the last bastion of support you got, dude. You better be grateful to the guy. And again, the funny thing is, I go, yeah, it's funny to point out that Microsoft is, of course, one of the many companies buying up all the chips in AI and memory during the AI boom. But of course, they'd be getting bought by Google and Nvidia and everybody else anyway. Microsoft's just one of the mega, and Elon Musk buying them all up. So Microsoft's just one of the things. Times have changed. AI is happening, whether you like it or not. And I've said it before, the game industry and the GPU pricing and consumer computing, because of AI, how AI has changed the economics, independent of all these people you're trying to blame, is the world's changed. The market has changed. Sorry, you can blame these guys, but the market has changed forever. History marches on. And the economics of PC gaming and GPUs have changed probably forever, and that's hard to deal with. And the angry encels in mom's basement are outraged about it and blaming people. And it's not a people thing; it's a we discovered AI thing, and that's changing all the economics of everything really rapidly, whether you like it or not.
AI fantasies about what he thinks is going to be the best big thing for Microsoft and even everybody.
He's
in
got
the
a
tech
good track
industry
record of
as
being
well.
right about
It's
that.
always funny watching people try to say and blame Activision Blizzard King as the real reason why this is happening to Xbox. Yet we're watching as the main leader of Microsoft himself is literally putting his hands into every single jar and taking out every red penny that he can to facilitate his own egotistical ideas and his.
He was just saying at the beginning of the video, he agrees they're making 3% margins. There's no pennies in the jar. The jar, it's a sucking jar. It's the jar that sucks the pennies out of the other room. He did 2+2, just 7, 9, square root of 2. I can't figure it out. He's not. Satya's tolerating Xbox for some reason and has tolerated it for years, doing that. and they're not AI fantasies. It's a freaking reality. Now, whether Microsoft, again, Microsoft's the Titanic, and Satya's got real. He's obviously the whole AI. I mean, it's fun to make fun of them. Don't get me wrong, lots of fun because these are the smartest people that they know, as far as they are, and so it's fun to stay back and laugh at Microsoft's struggles with OpenAI, trying to get in the right position of in front of history, right? Because there's from a vision point of view, right? There isn't a shadow of doubt in my mind that Microsoft's future, their identity, the kind of company they're meant to be, had better land on the right side of history when it comes to AI. Absolutely. So whether you think whether it's fun to watch Asha Sharma, or I mean Satya Nadella, excuse me, struggle with that or not, which I think is hilarious and it's fun to comment on, they got to do it. You're right, right? And the degree to which, and if anything, if I have, and the reason that there's an Xbox at all is because Satya's been taking money from the extraordinarily profitable Azure business and using it to subsidize this angry guy's games and all those game studios that were failing. So Satya's doing the exact opposite of what he's accusing him of, but Satya's run up. If Xbox were pumping out money that Satya could take, he wouldn't be firing their profitable studios. He'd be giving them more money because they're churning out cash. He needs to fund all this. But Microsoft doesn't even need to siphon cash off of. They don't need to sit there and go, "Oh, these guys aren't making money. I need to take it from the." Microsoft has hundreds of billions of dollars stashed in their bank account. They have massive stockpiles of cash. Their stock is through the roof. They can sell. They can raise hundreds of it. And the only thing that Xbox is a problem is that it's pulling their stock that price down at a time when they need to leverage the public market to pay for those data centers. So all the bad news coming from Xbox, if that bad news, that's the last thing Satya needs. And if he didn't want that bad news and he wanted his AI stock to just bubble up so he would have more cash to build his data centers, he'd have shot that group instantly overnight, which I told you in my previous episode. Everything, Satya doesn't need this shit. If he wasn't a supporter and believer in Xbox, he wouldn't have just fired Phil and Sarah Bond. He would have shut it down. That was his chance. That was his moment. He had every opportunity to do it. He didn't kill it. He let them keep dragging down their brand and the stock price when he needs the stock price to buy his GPU data centers. He lets them keep doing it. So that Satya is not the enemy of Xbox. He's your most loyal supporter, and you morons better thank him for it before he goes, oh, fortunately, he probably doesn't give a shit what you think. So he doesn't listen to your shows. He doesn't give 2 seconds thought to you. Because if he was the slightest bit insulted by it and had an ego, he would probably shoot a shot Xbox a long time ago. For some reason, some inexplicable reason, Satya Nadella sees value in Xbox. He continues to support it when he has no rational reason to have done it. No good, obvious business reason anybody can really point to for needing this much shit, this much baggage. So the problem is Satya is your best ally. So if you're pointing and blaming him, what are you thinking, dude? Right? That's the guy who's the only reason there's an Xbox for the last decade is because that guy stuck by it while it was sucking money out of his profitable business pockets, holding down Microsoft stocks. And all those greedy people you talk about all the time, they're going, shoot that thing, and he's saying no at the board. So Satya's your best friend, man. I don't know what you're thinking.
Massive amounts of failures. But the thing is, it's going to get worse before it gets better. Because remember,
yes,
Asha Sharma was put there by Satya himself, and she was also part of the core AI team. But there's more to the article by VGC, so let's see what they had to say and go from there. With the article saying, quote, that's according to Bloomberg, which first reported the news and corroborated by VGC's own sources, who indicated that Compulsion Games, Double Fine, and Ninja Theory are among those in active negotiations to spin off from Xbox. The Xbox studios are said to be at risk of being shuttered, but have the opportunity to buy themselves back from Microsoft and go independent, though employees are likely to lose their jobs as a result, according to Bloomberg's Jason Schreier, saying, quote, employees at several studios have been informed of the situation and given permission to seek new work, but were told that the status of the studios is still in flux, he wrote. And this is where I think Xbox is in fact doing the wrong thing. We've
Oh, here
seen
we
them
go.
before talk about hedging their bets on bigger budget titles, things like Fallout, things like Elder Scrolls, even more Halo games. The problem is those games have not been produced since what? This entire generation in fact began. We saw the teaser trailer, or dare I say even the splash title screen for Elder Scrolls 6. Nothing since then. Fallout? Been completely gone. All we get is Fallout 76 now. And those are some good ideas. Yes, you need big tentpole titles as part of your
No.
brand to be successful.
Oh god, here they go. So here's the guy who lives in his mom's basement, never made a game in his life or run a game studio, going, obviously this is what you need. Opposite, not true. Here's what's happened. So I'm gonna keep it tight here because I got another angry incel I want to show you who really covers the topic better. So I'd rather rant about it there, but it comes down to something really simple. There was a time back 25 years ago, 2004, when in some none of you may remember this, but there was a time when Ultima Online, EverQuest were the first great MMOs, and they first started showing this new business model of people paying subscriptions for games, which was unthinkable. That was the big invention, right? It wasn't the MMO. It was the idea of getting a subscription to a game that ran for 20 years or 25 years, quarter of a century. Such that today, World of Warcraft, kind of the ultimate first generation MMO that just ate the game industry and made billions and did it for 25 years. That was an unthinkable idea in the game industry, to make a game franchise that just churn out money like a frickin' coal factory. So in the early 2000s, a quarter of a century ago, that was a huge discovery. It was a huge innovation. It's like, wait a minute, we can stop burning whale oil in streetlights and just oil comes out of the ground. We don't have to go out in a wooden boat and hit it with a harpoon. We can just drill a hole and oil that we can burn and so our lamps exists. Well, fuck, let's make MMOs, right? So there was a time when World of Warcraft, and this was gospel, well known inside the game industry when World of Warcraft finally hit, was and micro and everybody. So we'll come back to this. So it was clear with the early success of Ultima Online, which I worked on. This is one of the first DirectX games ever made. I worked with Richard Garriott and the crew, and they were deeply involved in the creation of DirectX 1. uh, Ultima Online, the first MMO, because MMOs evolved with the introduction of Windows gaming. Because what was Windows great at? Network connectivity, and it coincided with the internet era. And so the combination of Microsoft, DirectX coming along and making Windows play games, and Windows being great at networking, and the internet hitting, and Microsoft tripling down on supporting the internet, made MMOs a viable business model in gaming. So suddenly game companies could go from tiny small team struggling studios throwing darts at the board for making a game that sells for a little bit, and then hopefully they could save up enough cash to make another game, and hopefully they had enough runs of reasonable successes that they didn't go out of business. And that was the game business prior to the invention or discovery of the MMO. And I won't go into it in too much detail here because it's be a whole fun subject to do a whole history of the evolution of these business models. But the short of it is that the Halo was the first sort of proto MMO in consoles, and that's why the Xbox, first generation Xbox, was so wildly successful, is that they made the first network console and had experienced a tiny portion of the small permanent franchise success of an MMO like game in the form of Halo. World of Warcraft came and Blizzard did it much better. They made a game that ate the game industry. And when Blizzard World of Warcraft came out, people used to say it was like it was a rat poison to game customers. Because if anybody, any gamer anywhere, ever played World of Warcraft even once, they never bought another game again. So what happened is World of Warcraft made billions, in gaming over a quarter of a century, and they sucked all of the oxygen out of the game market. If you were making single one-off hit games, all of that died. And the only reason, and the one-off AAA game at that point, after the MMO business model was invented, the last bastion of the AAA single player game was on the console for two interesting reasons. One, World of Warcraft didn't need to share 30% of their revenue with Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, Xbox for their console subscriptions. The game was viral. Absolutely everybody would play it. They didn't need to acquire, they didn't need marketing, they didn't need to sell a CD. They were frickin' Blizzard. So they didn't go on the console because they didn't need anything a console had to offer. The PC market was free, wide open, and they could keep 100% of those incredible profits. And so, so the World of Warcraft said everybody in the game industry was like, "Holy crap! We're out of business if we don't make one of those. That's the future. Massive multi. And back then, World of Warcraft was like $70 for the box, and then $20 a month for the subscription for World of Warcraft. And gamers everywhere who touched World of Warcraft, anybody anywhere who could afford to buy a game, played World of Warcraft, never bought another game again. All their time, all their budget, World of Warcraft. And that lasted for years. And the game studios were like, "Oh crap!" The consoles became an island because they were in the living room. You couldn't get MMOs there. They weren't really gamepad games, and the MMO, a good MMO, didn't need a console and didn't need to share any freaking money with Microsoft or Sony. So they weren't there. So League of Legends explodes. Esports explodes on the PC. They make a mint, billions of dollars. And pretty soon, if you want to be in the game business, you got to make MMOs. And so then again, I won't go into too much detail, but the competition among MMOs, you couldn't have one massive MMO like World of Warcraft come along, suck all the oxygen out of there, take all the money, take all the gamers. And yet the game market grew, new gamers came along, so there became room for more MMOs, but not all of them, not every fucking game, not every studio, not thousands of them. And then with competition in MMOs, because suddenly World of Warcraft wasn't the only one with the MMO economics, subscription economics, in order to compete as an MMO, the business model evolved further to the free-to-play game. And you have your Fortnite and your Roblox. And as we just saw from a couple of months ago, massive layoffs at Epic, even that isn't profitable anymore. The most successful game in history, churning out billions, the pioneer in successful free to play games, Roblox and Fortnite, don't make a profit. Right? So even as the angry Encels are ranting, Asmondgold, another one of the great angry Encels, ranting about microcurrency games, how much he hates them. Oh, they're greedy, they're greedy. They're going broke. They're all losing money. They're subsidizing. You're getting your games for free. They're giving them to you at a loss. They're losing money every time you play Roblox. And so they're not, and all those business models aren't working anymore. And that's just because the market got too saturated with them. Everybody's making them, and there aren't enough gamers and not enough people with money to keep all of those games. So the business model has to change, and that's exactly what Asha Sharma and Matt Booty said. So you have AI going on, another massive sea change. So again, in the MMO era 25 years ago, the internet came along, Windows with gaming support, Microsoft makes a console with an internet port, and MMOs and free-to-play games are born and redefine the economics of gaming. A quarter century later, everybody's doing it. There's not enough room for everybody, and the business model doesn't work. Isn't sustainable. The costs have gone through the roof. AI is driving the costs through the roof. So this is why it's actually exciting. The AI thing that the angry Encels are all upset about, this is what's exciting, is remember, there were angry Encels back in my day who loved the DOS-based PC game industry. They hated Microsoft for a good reason. It's always good reasons to hate Microsoft, don't get me wrong. But those guys hated Microsoft coming along and forcing them all onto Windows and forcing them all to make internet games. And then the ones who did it made just billions. They just got rich and are just retired and laying on their couches of cash, just going, "Ah, Microsoft sucks," right? Uh, it's funny because I dealt with them. I won't name names, but some of the biggest billionaires in gaming you all know just bitter with Microsoft for making them billionaires in the 90s and then early 2000s by saving the PC game industry. Again, there's lots of things to hate Microsoft about, don't get me wrong, but these angry Encel gamers from the 90s, a lot of them got really rich on Windows and really rich on MMOs. I mean, incredibly rich. Sailing around the world in their 400-foot yachts. And, I'll name Gabe because, we all know Gabe. He doesn't care. but um, so all those angry incels from that era just made billions while being outraged to this day and ungrateful. Just I'm so angry. I gotta cry. Just tearing up $100 bills in anger. And so that was that era, right? But remember, and it was a change. The internet came along, market forces came along. That if you didn't change with the times and make an MMO, you were dead. You're out of business. You didn't switch from DOS to Windows games, you were dead. Well, that's happened now. It's that day again, and it's AI. It is, right? And the weird thing is, you have all the angry incels now going, AI slop and creativity and it's copyright. All that is nonsense. All those people are going to be lost and forgotten in the history books. And everybody, 25 years from now, everybody will like, I was so on board with AI. It was so visionary. Or, oh boy, I'm angry with Microsoft. I just made billions making AI games, so many billions. So all the game developers will just be washing their tears with all the money they're going to make selling out to artificial intelligence because it's that era, guys. Just saying, right? So these guys here are old, obsolete. They're gray in their beard and they're missing the boat. They're hating the thing that's going to save their business. Yeah, everything will change. Right? If you don't like MMOs, then yep, you're going to be disappointed. So the last bastion of console games, single player games, because the single player games, those obsolete, antiquated business model games, found a home on the console, and now consoles are going to be $5,000 each. So they're dead too, and that's what's going on, right? And Microsoft's got that memo. Everybody's getting them. So Sony's going to have that memo too. They're not going to make those games. And consoles all are online. So guess what? Your next generation business models are all got to work there, and they came there too. They did, right? So now your free to play games, your business models, your MMOs, they're on the console now. And that's because competition drove them there. They used to be that they didn't need anybody's market, they didn't need your console, and now they need the marketing and support because there's too damn many of them. So a bunch of them were going out of business, or they're going to do one of two things. They're going to go out of business or they're going to pioneer AI gaming. And the smart ones will go pioneer AI gaming. They'll go crying all the way to the bank while they do it too, but they're going to go pioneer AI gaming. So here we go.
Or in this space right now. The problem, though, is the gap left in between, which is by these smaller studios. And I think the big issue isn't the fact that these studios existed. I think the issue is the insane size of budgets that were happening with places like Double Fine and also with Ninja Theory especially, and even with Compulsion Games as
well. Yeah, there was nowhere to go. The only way to if you're in a market where the MMOs on the PC just destroy all if an MMO, if a customer gets hooked on an MMO, they don't play 2 or 3, nobody has 5 MMO subscriptions, they're gone. They're not buying your single player games, they're not buying console games. They're hooked on an MMO, they're gone. So the massive boom in MMOs took everybody out. The only people left playing and buying any single player games, right, are the people going, I'm just antisocial, I don't want to play with other people. I just want a big animated story. And those were and then on the consoles, the only way to compete in that was to pour more money into production values. So everybody just went in a race to pour money into them, and the world's changing, and nobody has any more money, and people aren't buying those games. So the strategy of pouring more money into single player games isn't working either, and that's why they're all dying.
well. I think what we're watching right now is the fact that massive budgets were being pumped into video games with the potential of selling and literally doing nothing at all. Kiln, absolute flop. South of Midnight, it may be good to some people, some others might like it.
This is a so flops. He's calling them all flops. These are bad games. Oh my god, right? So yeah, I'm old and bald, right? I'm from the era where we had a few pixels to work on, right? Super Mario, which looks like shit, was just the best game I ever played to this day. It's just so fucking good. And so you get games with production values and realism and graphics beyond any description. You take that game back in time, every one of these games would be a massive blockbuster seller 20 years ago. Any one of them standalone would be off the charts. But not in this market, not in these times. Everybody's got them. So these aren't bad games. No, some of them are, I'm sure. These aren't bad games. These aren't crappy production value games. These are games with too many competitors. So calling them flops, and that's why these idiots go. They're like, "Oh, just make a good game." You can't. They physically can't. They've proven that given all the talent in the world and all the resources and all the money, they still can't make a game that can compete against 50 other ones that are maybe B class, but they just take all the air out of the room. And the free to play games like Roblox and Fortnite sucked all the other air out of the room. They just can't make money at it. It doesn't matter how good the game is. So these games aren't flops. That's the problem. Is they would by any other time in any other era, every one of them would be a massive hit, except that you're just so drowned. The fact that you can sit there and compare two of these games, all of them with just science fiction grade realism, physics, volumes of content and art and assets and giant 1,000-person teams, and go, this game sucks. You've got to be kidding me. That's the problem. That's what's happened is you can't be satisfied. Nothing will make this guy happy. Nothing can make these guys happy anymore because they've been just swamped with content that their bar is so insanely high that they can't find joy in playing any games anymore. That's the problem. None of these games are a flop, really. There would be hits, just crazy hits compared to just a few years ago. Maybe we got to go a couple decades, but they'd all be hits. But there's just everybody's doing it, and everybody's spending money that doesn't exist in a market that's so competitive and changing rapidly. Can't make any money at this business. Everything's got to change.
But also, total flop. Hellblade 2? Yeah, I don't think so, Tim. The problem, in my opinion, with these companies and these studios is this. That's all they basically had. That's all they've done for the last 6 years, completely wasting everyone's money, time, and everything else across the board. This is nothing more, in my opinion.
He'll be up here rant tomorrow. He'll forget every word he just said, and he'll be ranting about how greedy they are, or how they're charging $100 for these games that he just told you took $1,000 in 6 years to make, and then angry at how greedy they are while they're going out of business and being sold off. Just 2 plus 2s. What is that number? It's 8. It's -5. What is it? You just can't connect. I think he can. I think it's the shtick, but oh my God.
Opinion that complete mismanagement across the board, not just at the studios, but also at Microsoft and
it's See, here you go. It's mismanagement. Like he could do any better. He's like, he knows what mismanagement is. He never made a freaking game in his life. Never managed anything. Never run thousands of teams of people with thousands over 6 years with massive technology. But he's qualified to say it's mismanagement. The most talented people in the industry delivering absolute ridiculous science fiction, real-time, ray-traced games and thousands of hours of content and MMOs and building massive services. He's like, they're all mismanaged. Like he freaking knows. Oh my God.
Xbox as well. People going around and acting like they were just getting a free lunch and a free ride the whole time and producing games nobody wanted to play. So in some ways,
right? Because the market changed, producing games nobody wanted to play because they're already just Tim Sweeney's. They'd make fun of Tim Sweeney's Epic Game Store having no audience because he made a game so popular that anybody who visits the Epic Game Store, this is true, they won't say it. Anybody who visits the Epic Game Store, the first game they see is Fortnite. First game they play is Fortnite. Never come back. Fortnite sucks all the oxygen, all of it, out of the Epic Game Store. And ironically, that's true of Steam too. Valve doesn't make all their money. They make, yeah, that's some sideline selling a few games there. Their own franchises make, it was like 70 or 80% of the money on Valve, just like Fortnite does. But for their audience and distribution is so much larger. Epic just sucked all their audience into one massive hit game, but Valve does the same thing. So any one of these app stores that has a hit franchise destroys the market for everybody else. That's why the average Valve game makes the average game published on Valve makes like $1,000 because Valve Steam sucks all the money out of their own store with their own franchises, where again they keep all the money, right? No 30% rev share once you've taken the air out of the room. And that is true for any of these platforms that has those oxygen sucking free to play or MMO type games in them. Any reasonable success, and oh boy, here comes Grand Theft Auto 6, right? It's going to happen again on the console. Let's say Grand Theft Auto 6 is half the hit that anybody predicts it is. It's going to destroy all kinds of studios and game companies, just wipe them out. If that happens on the console, because the console used to be the last safe place for those AAA single player games.
I'm kind of mad about this, and in other ways, I'm kind of like, yeah, good, get them out of here. Because clearly, they're not doing anything for us as a consumer, or even as someone who enjoys video games overall. When you're watching the
No,
AA
I don't
space
think you've
and the
enjoyed a
indie
game
space
in years.
itself completely
Sounds like you're a
dog
miserable
walk
person.
every other major company and corporation in gaming right now. You've got a game like Mecha Chameleon made by two guys literally topping the Steam charts as we speak right now. And the thing is, it's not like Xbox can't make games. Look at Forza Horizon 6. Massive amounts of sales on PC. Huge amounts of engagement all over Xbox console itself. And people chomping at the bit to play that game on their PlayStation 5s. And then you've got Gears of War E-Day. People excited about playing Gears. And even PlayStation fanboys losing their absolute minds trying to downplay that game because they're not going to be able to get it on their PlayStation 5. Even though there are full-on receipts of those same people admitting to be excited about playing Gears on their PS5 Pro. It happens every single time. But the problem is, I think that Xbox is not going to stop at these three studios. No. I think we're going to be seeing almost Embracer levels of sales and fire sales happening with these brands, IPs, and...
Yeah, I mean, again, how Microsoft and Apple pivoted into what would have been opposite logical roles in the game industry is kind of hard to fathom, right? It's the same thing we have, well, I won't talk about politics, but it is funny, in Gen X where I grew up, right? The Republicans were anti-Russia. They're all evil communists taking over the world, and the Democrats were like, "We love communism and socialism. We love those guys." And weirdly, 25 years later, the Republicans are portrayed as the pro-Putin, pro-dictator party, and the Democrats are all, oh no, we hate that communist dictator. So it's weird how you see these sort of weird pivots in ideology and in industry roles and positions. Microsoft was a great platform company. It was their great strength. And I think that when they decided to start competing with their customers, with game studios, they weakened a lot of their focus and the success of their core success as a platform that enabled people to make money and to be independent of them. So Microsoft, yeah, cherry picking the big money on your own platform by making Microsoft Office, and they try to reproduce that in the game business. Yeah, probably too much of that was going on. So yeah, should Microsoft have a hit franchise or two like Valve and Epic does that help as an anchor tenant for their mall? Sure, they should have one or two of those. Should they be trying to run all the studios in competition with the industry and indie developers? And should they let their internal studios focus steal or distract focus from being a great gaming platform to independent developers? No, they shouldn't. I think that was probably a mistake for Xbox or for Microsoft. So I think, yeah, they should shoot most of them. They should shoot all but two studios completely, and I think they probably will before this is over.
Everything else that happened all under Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond. But there's more to the article, so let's keep going. The potential
Actually, so you can watch this guy's episode. It's good stuff. I love it all. But I have another angry Encel I want to get to because got a different tone, different take on things that I give more better angle to get into. So here's another angry Encel. This one's got 478K subscribers. Also, pretty good angry. You see, he's got the Iron Maiden T-shirt, got the beard in Mom's basement, got all the guitars in the background because I won't say it. But here we go. Here's the analysis from the another great angry Encel YouTube streamer.
They actually think this is going to work. Xbox is out here laying off staff, preparing to gut studios, maybe even shut a couple of them down. They're even dancing with the idea of having Microsoft spin off the entire Xbox business into its own entity, like they're cutting off a limb that's gone gangrene. You got Satya Nadella out here talking about how the business isn't even sustainable and that they need to worry about monetizing it even more than they already do.
Which is negative $20 billion. So these guys always go with a greedy theme. Just to be clear, Microsoft was giving away and subsidizing Xboxes and all those games you loved and losing money the entire time they were doing it. Here we go.
Also talking about, well, I don't know, leasing your consoles like they do cell phones. Asha Sharma is out here and she's gone from the savior to the reaper. It's got a lot of people's heads spinning. I, for one, welcome it. Except for the cell phone part. That's definitely dark. I don't want to have anything to do with that. But this is what I view as one of the most necessary things to happen in the games industry, the collapse of the Western games industry. Because you look at Xbox, and these guys, they became the largest publisher in the entire industry by essentially consolidating half of the industry, buying up most of their competition, at least anything they could get their greedy little mitts on. And they gave these developers a false sense of security. Oh, you're just making these games for Game Pass. When in fact, I think these guys should have been out there in the industry fighting for their own life, competing in the blood sport of Darwinism that is the games industry today.
And Microsoft should have made the Xbox
everything
the best
that Xbox
platform
is doing
for them to do that.
None of it's actually going to work. None of it's actually going to do anything. Their issues have never just been that they had too many studios. That's definitely part of it, but these guys have no idea what Xbox even is.
True.
And I think that Microsoft is a big part of that problem.
True.
They are a company that's getting involved in an industry and with an audience that they are so much more interested in exploiting than they are actually serving. So today what I want to do is I want to talk...
Yeah, that's interesting. Let's talk about that. Microsoft's a capitalist, publicly traded company. It's their job to exploit people. That's what a company does. That's their. If you're a bad company and you suck at it, if that's not your goal, so let's just blah blah blah. Capitalism sucks. Whatever. From the guy who lives in his mom's basement, doesn't have a job. Okay, but Microsoft's subsidized consoles $20 billion. I started the Xbox operating system and the team, the people who went and built the Xbox, I recruited them all. They're all angry Encel gamers. They hated Microsoft. They loved their DOS games, and they did not want to let Windows run over and destroy everything about the DOS PC Wild West gaming that they loved. And so they joined Microsoft, and they persuaded Bill Gates to make the Xbox. And they all loved gaming. And all the Asperger angry engineer dudes at Microsoft, nerd dudes, living coding and building the Windows operating system were this guy. That's who they all were, except maybe with 120 IQs plus, right? And so they were all loving gaming. And so Xbox was made by people at Microsoft who couldn't have been more excited and more passionate. And at that era, in that time and place, they were the console game customer. They were the DOS gamers. So it was made by the people who it was for at that time. Those people are all gone. They're all retired. They're all got mortgages. They don't have time to play games anymore. It's been a quarter of a century. Microsoft's changed. The people running Microsoft have changed. The people playing, the next generation of gamers are entirely different. So yeah, they're way off the rails today. Way off the rails. But Microsoft started the Xbox with a lot of love. And of course, that was reflected with its success. But that love included taking massive losses on the sale of every Xbox, and the red ring of death. Craig Eisler, one of the guys I created DirectX with, he stayed on through the Xbox era on the Xbox team, and he was in charge of dealing with ditching all the millions, buying back, running their buyback program to reacquire all the red ring of death Xboxes and find a place to dump them. So we used to talk about the massive loss Microsoft took in, when they had the red ring of death problem with the first generation Xbox, of having to buy them all back, do a recall to make good with those gamers. So Microsoft, took a lot of grief for that, understandably, but they also sucked up a lot of losses. So yeah, sure, capitalism sucks, evil company, blah, blah, blah. Right, Xbox was started with love. People who built it were the target demographic. The problem is they're way out of phase now because Microsoft forgot that they were in the platform business when it came to Xbox and started competing with their market by running all these studios. That was the mistake. They forgot the Microsoft identity was to be a great platform. And over on Apple's just like, yeah, we're just a platform. We're not going to make a game at all. Here's a storefront, go. And so the reason Apple is twice the size of Microsoft's game business with massive margins is because Apple just focused on being a enabling platform for gamers, where Microsoft decided to compete at it. And the reason Microsoft decided to make games, there was never any any core Microsoft business person there knows gaming is a terrible business, knows it's high risk. It was all made because all the angry Encel nerds at Microsoft wanted to make games. That was their dream. And so they formulated Xbox to feather themselves with the opportunity to run game studios and play game developers because it's fun and they loved gaming. And that's why Xbox actually in this mess was too much love and not enough business sense, really. So why does Microsoft have too many game studios, and why is Xbox in the position it's in? It's because it was a bunch of gamer dudes with a lot of money who really wanted and passionately wanted to make great games, wanted to make the kind of content they wanted to get paid to make games for a living, who formulated the Xbox that way. And it's also a terrible business strategy. That's what really happened. It's changed today. So Microsoft doesn't have anybody who, I won't say anybody, that's unfair. They have the wrong demographic. They're out of focus. The company's changed, and all the angry Encel Asperger nerds who created it as their passion platform are gone. And the ones still living in their mother's basements complaining about it don't realize that, outside in the grass and sunshine, the world has changed while they were in the basement. So, something has to give. And if you want there to be a future in an Xbox, and I do because it's my legacy, right? I'm the granddaddy of the gaming on Windows. Then I would love there to always be a great future in a U.S. game console or Xbox brand, in whatever modern market form that transitions successfully into, right? I don't want to see it flop catastrophically or be paired off to die because they can't figure it out. I want them to figure it out. Of course, I have brilliant ideas about actually informed business ideas about how they should figure it out, but nobody talks to me anymore. they all think they know better than I do. That's the funny thing. They're all experts at online gaming because somebody gave them a job and a title at it once. They worked at a little game studio somewhere and made a few titles that were moderately successful, so they know gaming well. But you'll find that, yeah, there's going to be a whole crew over at Microsoft who are fighting for money and power. Probably not the same kind of people who made the original Xbox and game studios, who did really love it. The reason that Microsoft Xbox gaming is a mess is because there was too much passion for gaming and not enough business sense, and that's why they're in this corner now. And so advocating for more of it is not helping them, sadly.
About Xbox's great reset and how I don't buy any of it.
Yeah,
And how
of
the
course you
more
don't.
time that I spend looking at this company, it looks like they've just spent a decade trying to do everything other than just making games that people want to play. Man.
There,
Games
he
journalism.
said it. They all do it. They all say it. It's wrong. That's a terrible way to make money. It's not true. There's so much competition. They're all doing it. That's exactly what they did, was spend all the money they had trying to make games people would want to play, and there's just too much competition. And the market's changed. The economics don't work, and they were losing money every great game they made. Right? Halo, the most profitable game in history gaming, lost every dime to the amount of money they had to use from the sales of Halo to subsidize the losses they were taking on Xbox sales. And now they don't even have Halo, right? So terrible, terrible advice. Worst business advice a game company could take is just make games people want to buy. It's not true. It's a fucking business. It's a boring business. Under the hood is boring. And if you don't think like a business person while making games, you make games that suck. And the definition of a game that sucks is a game that fails financially, which this advice, causes, right? Because it's not good. There isn't such a thing anymore. And don't get me started, right? Like just over a minute ago, Alex was talking about, there's this tiny little game on Steam that's just going viral, right? Yeah, it's probably a massive hit. Maybe they'll make $2 million. Microsoft can't do that. They can't make a living on that. A massive viral hit on Steam, maybe they make a few $1 million. Microsoft can't make that kind of business. They need something that makes $100 billion, or they can't get out of bed for it, flat out. If Microsoft Xbox isn't $100 billion, they really don't have a raison d'être, a reason to exist.
Really are surprised that some of these studios are shutting down.
Surprised? Why?
Ow. But before that, today's video was sponsored by Boot.dev. That's right, I drug these guys back again in hopes that I can convert some of you guys to hopefully make games of your own, because then I could play those games and I'll probably like those games because you guys watch my videos or maybe something like that. I tried to make games myself before. I went to college for it, dropped out twice, and that was mostly because the classes were boring. And honestly, the teachers weren't any good. But Boot.dev has a different approach.
See what I mean?
It teaches you programming from the beginning.
So he's
with
in his
Python,
mother's
but it's
basement
structured more
ranting
like an
about
RPG.
how
You complete
Microsoft
quests,
should run a
earn
game
XP,
company.
level up, unlock achievements, and actually write code instead of just sitting through hours of lectures. You're going to build on real projects and scripts while learning actual skills that you're going to use in back-end development and DevOps or real data analysis. These are also careers that can pay extremely well, with back-end developers that are earning a median salary of around $175,000 in the U.S. in 2025. And many of these jobs are offering the kind of options to be able to, work remotely. When you get stuck, Boots, the Bear Wizard, has context for your lessons and actually helps guide you towards the answers rather than just giving it to you, making the entire experience just feel that much more authentic and that much more smooth. Because the hardest part of learning anything isn't actually understanding it, it's just staying interested long enough to actually get good at it.
Okay, I lost
And Boot.dev we have seen thousands of companies do this exact same thing. It has its own name. It's called nostalgia marketing. You change the leadership, you brand a new person as somebody that is a part of the audience. You
Angry
roll out
Encel,
some
Mom's
logos,
Basement
some old
business
products, the old
analysis.
feelings, and then once you've built enough goodwill,
Microsoft's
you go right
engaging
back
in
to
nostalgia
business
marketing.
as usual.
Oh.
That's exactly what Xbox did. They brought in Asha Sharma.
No, yeah, they did try to calm down the Angry Encels, sure, whatever, but the problem is they can't tell the Angry Encels they're obsolete, they're dinosaurs, they're dying off. There's only a few of them left. There's only a few dudes left with beards and gray in them in their mom's basement anymore from the early Xbox generation. The rest of them have moved on. So if Xbox doesn't find a new customer other than this guy, they got no future, right? And the Microsoft's not going to be rude and tell them that, right? I'll tell you that. That's you better go, how are they Xbox winning a new demographic that isn't you? Because that's the only way you are going to get the games you want, is if they're successful with a whole audience that's not you. Because the amount of gray-haired bearded nerds still playing Xbox games is so too small to make a business out of for a console.
They build her as this gamer with a gamer tag showing 40 plus hours a week, which got debunked pretty quickly. I actually ended up talking to some people over at Summer Games Fest, and apparently she was very much against Xbox trying to do that, but they started changing their logos. They had their last showcase where they revealed the X25, a callback to the transparent Halo Edition Xbox, which, by the way, was really cool, and I totally want to get one of those if I was actually interested in an Xbox.
I have
definitely not.
a
But
Halo Xbox.
now here they are talking about console exclusivity, reigniting the console console wars all over again. And
Yeah.
all of this was meant to make you, as a customer, feel like this company is finally headed in the right direction.
Yeah.
Though realistically, they
Right,
really
that's
haven't done
what
much of
companies
anything
do.
beyond just manipulating sentiment to try to get it back on their side.
Yes.
Which, to be fair,
Right.
worked. It actually worked really well
Yeah.
in this case. People were posting online,
Right.
making videos, talking about how Xbox is back, how
No
Asha
shit.
Sharma is their savior, and how
Because the hammer's coming and they all know it, so they got to try to get everybody on board before they give them the bad news, right? Just the right hand and the left hand. Here's the carrot, here's the stick, and the
they
stick is
finally
coming.
see a light at the end of the tunnel, meaning that Asha's first days, or first 100 days, went exactly according to plan. But all of that goodwill, nostalgia, Xbox's back energy was only ever there just to cushion the fatal blow that was coming for the next 100
No shit.
days.
Of course.
After Summer Games Fest and the Xbox Showcase, both CEO of Xbox and the CEO of Microsoft went around doing interviews, and both of them basically took off the rose-tinted glasses and started telling the same story. Xbox is in crisis. Satya Nadella went on Hard Fork and said that YouTube is making more money off their games than they are. Hey, man,
Yes.
thank you for the shout-out. He also
There's a really profound point there, and I'll tell you what it comes from. And again, I got to be vague, but just remember, I'm the father of gaming on Windows. I know everybody. We know everybody, all the titans of gaming. I get to hang out with them every once in a while. If I wasn't such an encel myself, I actually went out and socialized with them. But, we bump into each other at conferences once in a while. So what did Sasha just say again? So the funny thing is, the encel doesn't know that this is a really important point. He just grazes over it. But he doesn't understand that one of the most important pieces of information that Sasha's telling you, he just missed. And let me hear again. See if you can pick it up. Watch, listen for it.
back energy was only ever there just to cushion the fatal blow that was coming for the next 100 days.
Okay, here it comes.
After Summer Games Fest and the Xbox Showcase, both CEO of Xbox and the CEO of Microsoft went around doing interviews, and both of them basically took off the rose-tinted glasses and started telling the same story. Xbox is in crisis. Satya Nadella went on Hard Fork and said that YouTube is making
What? Say it again.
Showcase, both CEO of Xbox and the CEO of Microsoft went around doing interviews, and both of them basically took off the rose-tinted glasses and started telling the same story. Xbox is in crisis. Satya Nadella went on Hard Fork and said that YouTube is making more money off their games than they are. Hey,
Bam. Do you understand what he just said? Right. So I'll tell you the truth. I'll be vague just because I know the people involved. Xbox has a new CTO. And he's a guy famous for writing a paper about, hey, the competition in gaming isn't about one game being better than another game. It's actually the market competition that is defining modern market is the huge competition for attention. That people have mobile devices on them all the time that are always active, and little short form videos, just people on their cell phone who have title, just takes a minute, right? And these giant AAA long form games, the amount of time people have anymore to sit down, turn off the environment, and just enjoy them for 2 hours an evening for weeks on end, there's only room for a handful of those in the market. Everybody else is just bombarded with content, and it's not games. It's the biggest competition for Xbox isn't PlayStation 6. It's YouTube, it's TikTok, it's Twitch, it's Discord. And inside Microsoft, they've put a new person in charge of strategy there who wrote a huge paper on how the modern competition in gaming is defined by competition for people's attention for anything, not about competition for games. And Satya hired that guy. And Satya's pointing out, just like I did, hey, isn't it funny that Apple and Google make more money on Android games than Sony or Microsoft running game studios and making whole console businesses? Neither of them has a CEO of gaming, and they don't make a single game. Don't bother. They're just great platforms on mobile that do it, and they monetize it like crazy, hugely profitable. Like I said, Apple makes more money in gaming at huge profit margins than Sony and Microsoft combined. Think about it. Satya knows this. And when he specifically names YouTube, what he's pointing out is that they're not even playing games. They're just watching angry encels like this guy talking about Xboxes and showing videos of Xbox games. And YouTube is making more money monetizing this guy in advertising than the 3% margin or even the losses Microsoft's actually making the games and selling them, right? Satya gets it. He's right. And so the funny thing is, all these angry encels combined are collectively stupider and more naive about the essence of the game business and how to make money on it than Satya Nadella, who nobody thinks is a gamer. Satya clearly thinks and very deeply about it and understands the real business model very clearly. Times and the market have changed. The nature of monetizing games has changed. And he's saying something really profound. He's saying that there's less money to be made selling a game to you than there is to be made in advertising dollars from other people watching you talk about and play the game in video. Because the whole business of making and selling games, it's a terrible business. The console business sucks. Being Discord, on the other hand, being YouTube, on the other hand, and having armies of angry encels running video clips and commenting and criticizing the games and running endless shards of Xbox video games on their channels with hundreds of thousands of subscribers is more profitable than actually making the game. Bang. That if you pick anything else up from this episode from The Saint, understand that point Satya just made and understand he gets it. And think about the new chief strategy officer they had who's famous for his paper on this subject. Satya gets it. He understands the problem. And he also, in that one answer, he's telling you why he had to fire Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond, because they were incapable of changing or learning. And they had no vision for how they could pivot into the kind of massive platform that could be massively profitable in the media side of the business. Another way to phrase this is it's more profitable in gaming to monetize consumption of gameplay via advertising than to sell games. What I just told you is the future of gaming. It's one of the most profound points I could possibly make to you if you're trying to actually have some insight into how the business has to change. And everybody reacts to go, I don't want advertising in my games. Right. Didn't you hear what I said? Making games with advertising in them, also, there's no money in that. Nobody wants it. Everybody agrees that's terrible. That's not what's going on YouTube. You're happily watching endless YouTube ads, Twitch ads, Discord advertising. You're watching all that stuff. You're watching ads endlessly on TikTok. No problem with it. No, it's okay. While consuming game-related content about games you don't even have time to play anymore. You spend more time watching video about games than you spend playing them. That's what's happened. That's profound. So gameplay for games you've purchased is more valuable to monetize from people talking about it and watching it than it is selling it to the person playing it, which is not so that the conclusion is not advertised to the person playing the game. That's not what he's saying. He's saying that a bunch of people not buying the game and not playing the games are worth more money than the people who bought the game at a huge premium. This is a really profound point. And ironically, it's also that insight is essential to Xbox succeeding. But will the new people figure it out? I don't actually think they will, but so they understand the problem correctly. But can they solve it? And if you realize that's the problem, what do they got to do? Well, you're sure as hell firing every studio, because what are you doing making games? What kind of moron platform company makes games at a huge loss when they should just be enabling lots of other people to take that risk on their platform, fight it out, and the winners all produce content that they can monetize with advertising from people watching it like YouTube does, which is massively more profitable and native to Microsoft's business model. That's what Satya's pointing out. So he's telling you the correct vision or the correct business vision and insight into fixing what Xbox has to be. And the first thing you conclude is stop fucking making games. Be Apple. be a great platform, enable all those developers and creative people to fight it out in the free market, doing the best they can, and monetize it another way. That's if anything else you see in this video, that's the big one. So, and notice the Encel doesn't get it. They'll hear him say it, so they'll go right over their heads. Poop, didn't hear it. Whoops. The most profound information contained here, they miss. Whew. Okay, here we go. Keep going.
Man, thank you for the shout out. He also talked about how Xbox is not monetizing its games enough, and how after 25 years of investment, it is time for the Xbox brand to become self-sustaining, and claimed that
All right, so they're not monetizing their games enough. Now, what do the angry incels say about that? You go, you charge me for the game, you want a subscription for the game, you're trying to microtransaction the game, you're trying to put ads into the game, and he's going, I got 1,000 people who took 6 years to make this freaking game. It costs $700 billion to make, $1 million to make, not billion. Good grief, good grief, $700 million to make a modern game, right? Not milking that one customer who was sucker enough to buy the game just doesn't make any money. YouTube doesn't make a single game. They're just like, yeah, some angry incels talking about them. Billions in ad dollars. Ooh. Right? Now, the funny thing is, a lot of you will hear me say that and just lose your minds, especially any angry incels I have left, because you think I'm implying something about it. But it's a really important point. There's an asymmetry. The game watcher, video watcher, is vastly more valuable than the paying game buyer is. Vastly more valuable. And Apple has proven that, and YouTube has proven that, and Microsoft's over there wasting their time and money making game studios at a loss, and everybody's angry with them for doing it. What the hell were they thinking? They're a platform company. They used to be a great one. Satya's a platform guy. The Xbox should be the future Xbox should be some kind of platform play. Microsoft shouldn't be making games. Again, maybe you need an anchor tenant for your mall, but that's a different point.
the Xbox business has been reporting losses up until just recently, with a profitability margin of 3% at the moment, which is not good at all, especially when you own some of the most expensive studios.
Then he'll forget he said that and go on and
in
rant
the
about how
entire
greedy they are
industry.
in a minute.
Then both Nadella and Sharma started talking about how there are tough decisions ahead, a desperate need for cost reduction and better monetization. Asha then took interviews where she talked about how the rising costs of hardware is only going to continue to get worse, with some of these costs potentially rising to 7 times what they are at this point. And because
now they're saying 7. See, it's what I told you. Remember, you heard it from the Saint first. I got a lousy 650 subscribers, right? You'll hear everybody with millions of users on YouTube, and none of them will sell you what I told you in advance. The cost of hardware is gone up permanently. It's not a market. It's just like a freighter sank in the Strait of Hormuz with all your GPUs on it and didn't make it here. Sorry, I know they don't float through Hormuz. It's not temporary. It's a market change. The GPU and memory costs are never coming down again. It's never happening. It's the market. Sorry. And that means the business model for making consoles at all doesn't work exactly as I predicted when I wrote it back in Gaming 2020. I said they're going to go away for this I didn't predict an AI revolution in this form doing it, but I just said these economics were not putting a console online was going to was ultimately, with the maturity of the business, was going to eliminate the console business. It just wasn't going to make sense. And Microsoft can't figure out what to do with it now. But they're saying 7x the cost. Remember, I told you, we're not talking about, maybe is going to be $900 instead of $700 or $500. We're talking about a $5,000 console, and maybe climbing. We don't know. And so they're telling you, yeah, Alex is right. He was right when he told you months before they admitted. While Asha was on her PR tour going, "Hey, just don't hate me because I'm new and I'm a woman. I just give me a chance." While she was doing that, I was telling you, by the way, the console prices never coming down again. GPU and memory prices never coming down again. You heard it from me first. Now she's telling you. Now you're getting the bad news. Microsoft's going, yeah, Satya's going to buy all your chips forever.
Because of that, she said that the next console would require radically different solutions, more flexible hardware, more flexible storage, and financing options. She also talked about how Xbox as a business needs to refocus its efforts and allocate more investment towards its blockbuster franchises and AAA games, even if that means that they need to go through more mergers and acquisitions. After this, the news broke. Xbox is preparing for another wave of layoffs.
It's funny. The news broke. They were always coming. We all knew it. That was not news. Shouldn't be news. So she said there's now see this is what it's the second part. Remember I told you there's some really profound things because if people who the angry encels living in mom's basement, they just have no clue. They don't listen like business people. They're not from the industry, so they don't know what to take away from these. It's really dense with information that's really valuable, dense with insight, right? Um, what she's saying is, oh, is the console's going to be like $5,000, right? By the way, a console's going to be like $5,000. So how are we going to fix that problem? We got to rethink our business model. So we think that what you have to do is we have to make the console more like Lego. It's going to be a console that's going to be the minimum viable box that we can possibly sell you. We got to strip it down of any optional thing. Hard RAM, you're going to have to buy a plug-in module for it. Hard drive or SSD storage, you're going to have to plug that in. Additional peripherals, you're just going to have to buy them extra. We might not ship one. So what they're telling you is, or we'll have to have a really price range of shitty cheap $10 game pads up to the $500 game pad that are all so they're looking at all these kind of manufacturing and cost cutting ways of Legoing together a console while still having one. Right, so they go, okay, it's a $5,000 console. So one, you're going to have to take out a mortgage for it, and you're going to have to make it out like your refrigerator that you're going to keep for a decade on finance. So we have to set that up. Then we're going to have to take out anything we can that's expensive and make it Legoable, and you're going to have to optionally get it because we just can't because it's going to be too expensive. And none of that will work. None of it will be good enough. That's why I haven't heard them say anything that suggests that they're going to actually solve the equation successfully yet. But I'll be listening. We'll see. They're smart people, but they're on the Titanic, and so the reality is they can't act like a snappy startup speedboat, given saddled with $27 billion in revenue they have to try to defend and thousands of employees and a massive Activision acquisition they have to keep justifying to investors. So it's really hard for them to do anything too innovative, even though probably what they need to do is something radically innovative.
Jason Schreier reported on this in a YouTube video where he had said, as I reported to Bloomberg last week, massive layoffs are coming to Xbox at the end of Microsoft's fiscal year
So more
on
of the
June
massive
30th.
layoff
And
stuff.
as I reported on Bloomberg this week, studios such as Compulsion Games, the making them out because their plan is not to take that money and become leaner, smarter, or more disciplined. No, their plan is to turn around and pump that same money into AAA games that are already over budgeted to begin with, and also using it just to go out and buy more studios. And
so maybe he's right about that, in which case he's right about that. That's the wrong thing to do. And it did sound a little bit like that was their intention. I don't think that's what they meant. I think they need to buy more Minecraft and less studios, right? So the kind of acquisitions they may go, look, I need 2 or 3 of these just anchor tenant games that you can call them all AAA, but what they really need to be the decadal customer retaining MMOs like World of Warcraft is what they need. Less of the single player one-offs that you just got to keep making. So they may be trying to narrow it down to that and think that's a plan. But I actually hear something different. I think when you hear them saying they're going to talk about M&As, that's a really unusual thing for a big company to say if they intend to do it, because if people hear, oh, they're buying, well, everybody bangs on the door going, buy me, and the price goes up. So saying that they're going to engage in a lot of M&A, I suspect, what I think they're going to, I'll tell you what I really hear. We have to cut this thing to the bone, figure out our new strategy, and then we're going to acquire our way rapidly back up to mass, which isn't the same as buying a lot of game studios. We have to get lean enough to pivot to avoid the iceberg. And then we got to get back to scale as quickly as we can. So what we're going to do is chop ourselves down to the core of what we need to do to navigate this crisis and establish a new position in the new market gaming is going to be in. And then we're going to bulk up real quick. But bulking up doesn't mean game studios. Maybe we don't know what it means yet. We just know we have to get lean and nimble to avoid the iceberg. We know that. So we got to chop it all down. But then we'll bulk up again once we know our new direction, and we'll bulk up in that direction. So that's what I hear. So that's the weird thing is it's unusual for a company to say we're going to big giant public company to go we're on the market to buy people. I don't think that's what they're trying to say. I think what they're trying to say is we're going to chop down, get nimble, avoid the iceberg, figure out a new direction at great cost. We're going to make some hard sacrifices to do that. And once we've survived getting to the iceberg, then we'll focus on whether we're going to New York or not, or whether there's a different port we have to make it to. And then we'll bulk up to that focus through M&A. So it's an indication to the market that, yeah, we're going to chop our game business down to reposition, and then we're going to make M&A. We don't know who we're buying yet. We don't know what we want to buy yet. But that's our strategy for getting the Xbox into a better business model position. So I kind of think that's what they're indicating, because saying you're in the M&A business as a publicly traded company is a really unusual thing to say. If you really had specific companies you were planning on buying, you would shut up about it. So I suspect that that's a strategic statement, not a tactical one.
And none of what they're doing right now is going to solve any of this company's actual problems, which is their leadership, their greed, and the fact that their games just flat out suck.
See, he can't help himself. He can't go one way going, yeah, they're losing money, making 3% margins, and then 2 seconds later call them greedy, and then can't get that there's too many of these games and they're sucking at making games, and then blame the leadership for doing the thing the leadership correctly is doing, which is getting the fuck out of the game business for Microsoft and not competing with all these other indie little game studios and other better-funded game companies for market presence on their platform. So while they're sitting there on stage exhibiting excellent visionary leadership, the dumbass Encel in his basement is going, they're greedy and they're incompetent. Like he knows how to run anything. Agonizing. And again, I like the show. It's very entertaining. It's not. Maybe I overstated the criticism, but you just go, oh my God, did you not hear a second ago that they donated $20 billion to the games you claim to hate? Why are you even talking about it if you hate all the games? There must be some game you're playing on your Xbox that you love, or what are you doing talking about it on YouTube? But okay, let's go. Here we go. There's no positivity. Why do you even care? Why are you up there? Why don't you just go and don't buy that crap because it all sucks? But he's not. All right. I know subscribers, maybe he's making plenty of money because there's an audience for it. I'm one. I'm an audience. I love watching it. All right.
I have seen so many people celebrating this half measure of them bringing back only select exclusives, but it makes absolutely no sense. The
Totally
whole
makes
reason
sense.
that Xbox made their games multi-platform is because those games were not making enough money locked to the Xbox ecosystem.
Right? And then when you unlock them, they didn't make enough money either, because the problem wasn't that they didn't reach enough markets. The problem was there's too much of that shit in the game industry, too much competition for the same crap. Business model works, content studio business doesn't work. Satya told you at the beginning of the show and you missed it. You weren't bright enough to get it. He told you YouTube's monetizing the content of people playing the games much more profitably and successfully than actually being in the game business. So Satya's going, actually, I should shoot it all.
They were basically confirming that themselves by admitting that this business has not been profitable. Part of that has been them subsidizing these games through Game Pass, but a lot of it is much simpler than that. These games have just not been good enough to pull people into their
science
ecosystem.
fiction,
And
real-time lit physical combat. Oh my God, what do you want?
How are you going to convince someone to buy into an Xbox right now? These games are being sent out to die unless they are massively supported by PC. That's the only thing that's going to probably save them.
No.
You have maybe one or two exclusives that are going to be worth playing, a library that has been weak for years, hardware that's going to be at its highest price, prices that are likely.
Yeah, he's saying they have no business sense, right? So to be clear, this has always been true of the game market. It's even truer in the free to play and MMO world, where it's the 80-20 rule. One game, a handful, the top 5% of games make 80% of all the money. They do. And then the rest of the other 20% of the money is made by the sum of all the other games. So by definition, there are only one or two games that anybody that are great always. No matter, doesn't matter how competent your management is, it doesn't matter what you do, you can't have all the games be great equally dividing all the market. You can't. There's not the way gravity, economics, or reality works. There's always an 80-20 curve. No matter what you do, the game that is 1% better than the games next to it makes 80% of the money. Right? And the games that are 1% less good or less well marketed or less timely make 20% of the money. And one game, two games, three games, they make 80%. Always been that way, always will be that way. It's the way the business works, the way money and capitalism works. So, and then saying that anybody who doesn't produce an absolute hit every game they make, when that's impossible, that's a dumbass thing to say. It's not true. It's just not the way reality works. So saying, hey, they're making sucky games, that's not true at all. They're making fantastic, incredible science fiction games. It's the most incredible period in human history and technology. If you have any idea the kind of R&D and investment and talent that goes into making what this guy's calling a crappy game, it boggles my mind that the degree, the entitlement and spoiledness of the basement dwelling Iron Maiden wearing streamer is agonizing sometimes. That's not the problem. The problem is Microsoft shouldn't be making games at all, right? Maybe one or two, maybe publishing them, yeah, but otherwise, then just the two that make the 80%, because that's what Valve really does that makes them so successful.
Going to be even higher because of shortages, and everybody already knows that you guys are working on your next console that's going to be coming out in the near future. It doesn't make any sense. People keep talking about how bright the future is for Xbox. Well, tell me how bright that future looks when people just found buy now, pay later in Xbox's back end. And then we find out that Xbox is partnering with PayPal and Klarna so people can start spreading out their console payments like they're buying.
Uh-huh. Right. Like he's angry about this, right? Like he's just not gonna buy it if it's not a $500 console, even though the guy does nothing but stream all day about gaming, but he doesn't think that his console is worth more than $500. He's probably got a $2,000 to $5,000 PC under his desk, mind you. So yeah, the idea of making payments on his console, because I was like, mom's never gonna put it on her credit card for me, man, is just incomprehensible. But that's the start of something smarter, right? The weird thing was that, here's the funny thing about the whole business, the whole thing that boggles my mind. I know I'm old and cynical and dad, but Thanos on gaming, but um, so one, the gaming is like, there was years ago, the U.S. Census Bureau, would produce all these studies about how people's behaved, how consumers, how much time people spent at work, how much time they spent commuting, how much time they spent shitting, how much time they spent with family, how much time they spent on entertainment. And so it used to be that work was number one thing that people spent time on, sleep was the number two thing they spent time on, and family was the number three thing they spent time on. Was kind of the common formula for the U.S. through most of the industrial era. And in the last, during this century, it went to spending time on media and entertainment was the number one thing people spent time on. Sleep, number two thing they spent time on. Spent more time playing games and in TikToking than they spend sleeping. And work is a distant three. So people now spend more time asleep and more time playing games or consuming media increasingly, sleeping. Work is like 5 hours a day. This is what we do, to pay for the sleeping and the entertainment media. And so, and I haven't looked at the stat. I saw that a decade ago. It must have gotten more extreme. I should look it up. It'd be fun. I won't do it here. I'll do a whole episode on how we spend our time. It was funny because it had some microstats. Like it was 2013. I looked at the study. Right, people spent less time at the gym, spent more time at the gym on average 20 minutes a day than they spent with their families. So that was when I tried. You go, look, nobody works hard anymore. We push mice around for the living. We think 5 hours a day is heavy labor, pushing a mouse at our jobs. I used to really antagonize people by making that point. So in that context, media is an absolute dominant part of your day and your lifetime. You finance your car, you finance your house. Why wouldn't you finance your media device? Why wouldn't you? Um, and I think, again, I don't actually believe Microsoft's going to do the right thing. I don't think they're going to figure it out here, but it's also a clear admission that they know they're making a
Buying a
$5,000
damn car
console.
or a cell phone, lease to own for your video game consoles.
Right? And see, here how he's all saying, like, and your cell phone. Do you think he has a cell phone? I mean, sure, his mom pays for it, but do you think he has $1,000 cell phone? Of course he does. And is he paying a lease on a cell phone? Of course he is. Of course he is. So he may not like it. He may be angry about it, but he's going to do it like a little bitch, isn't he? Yeah. Right? So that's the funny thing is that he's angry about it, but at the same time, he wants the console. He wants the Xbox Helix to have $1,000 gameplay value and hardware. He just doesn't want to pay for it. He wants Microsoft to subsidize it, keep losing money, so he can rant about how greedy they are while they're buying him his kids' toys. It's just he wants it to be just like the relationship with mom. Mom, I want a new console. Buy it for me. So yeah, they're all indignant about the idea of leasing the media device, which his entire world revolves around gaming. And he's upset about the idea that his $5,000 game console he might have to lease. Yeah, he's going to do it. They're all going to do it. You betcha they're going to lease their consoles if they have to, or their Steam machines.
You gotta be kidding me. And then Satya Nadella going out there and talking about how they're not monetizing their games enough. You're gonna lease it, CSO, and you're gonna like it. To float the idea of injecting ads into Xbox or even into the games themselves, and how that would create more affordable options.
And there it is, right? See, remember I told you, Satya says it. YouTube is monetizing my games better than I am. But the people, YouTube isn't monetizing the people who bought the game. They're monetizing all the people watching games news on their cell phones, which Microsoft totally lost the market to Apple and Android. So the people paying attention, watching TikToks of Xbox games, those guys are making more money than Microsoft is at gaming. So the obvious conclusion isn't the people you have not on their phones and paying for the games ruin the experience by advertising to them. That would be a stupid conclusion to draw, wouldn't it? And yet there's some implication that that's what they may conclude from all of this, the wrong thing. So that's where you go, yeah, Microsoft always has the capability of knowing, having the information at their disposal and doing a dumb corporate thing anyway. So, totally likely impossible. Microsoft's done it before. Microsoft's had several waves of let's shove ads into games and then getting a Bronx cheer from their audience, but they get a Bronx cheer no matter what they do. So, let's be honest. The one theme you can be sure of the angry Encel is they'll never go, we love Microsoft. Actually, that won't be fair. They do have their moments when Asha was promising them, new console features and doing, and supporting new game studio launches. They were glowing a little bit, but in general, it's more fun to bitch about Microsoft. I definitely indulge in that too. It is more fun to bitch about Microsoft. So yeah, sticking ads in the games. No, that's not what Satya said. That's not. But that nuance is that real? There's an asymmetry that you're missing, right? See if they figure it out. See if they can get the formula right. Touch and go. I think there's a good chance they'll go, yeah, let's shove ads in there. Woo.
Yes. Doesn't that just sound absolutely fantastic? What a bright future we're looking at. And while, yes, he did say that it would hurt the experience. He's a gamer himself, and he said it's definitely not the current plan for Xbox. I'm sorry, but the fact that their CSO is even entertaining this idea tells me everything I need to know.
So see, they know. They know it's a no-no. Microsoft's already failed at it. I got long stories to tell you about the fail of game advertising. I'll do another episode. Insider stories. I lived and participated in all of it. I know exactly what happens. I can tell you. So Microsoft already knows that advertising in games this way, the way that fans are afraid of, doesn't work. And it is a good idea. They definitely are thinking it all the time too and wishing it could work. So it's definitely good for the angry incels to constantly be reminding them about how they're going to rebel. Not that I'm sure Microsoft cares anymore if they even dare to stick a billboard running a Nike ad in their Forza games.
If that wasn't enough, in some of the interviews that Asha Sharma had, she had talked about how they needed radically different solutions when it came to hardware and storage options, to which I could only read from that cloud. It's the only thing that makes sense.
Oh no, no. I mean that makes a good point. They could mean that. I think they mean Legoing the hardware together to minimize components. But I think that yes, if they can do some cloud stuff, the cloud. See, this is the funny thing. This is not. They're not business people. Aren't you getting it? The cloud is more expensive. The cloud is more expensive to use than the console is. That's why the console's so expensive. Is because the cloud is so profitable. The greedy bastards are making so much money taking your RAM and GPUs and putting them in the cloud that you can't afford because you're not going to pay as much as the cloud people will for it. So they're putting them all in the cloud. So using the cloud GPUs and RAM isn't going to work either because it's more expensive there. It's not cheaper. So I don't think that's exact. I'm sure that Microsoft has a strategic reason to do cloud stuff, but I don't think that's what they mean. I think they're going to try to make a minimal console and sell a lot of Lego parts and peripherals because that's a lot more, can be a lot more profitable. So I suspect that's what they mean, but who knows? Also, I don't know. Again, it's really funny because I told you in the previous episode I go to CGI movies and watch them first to try to enjoy them and see, how I think about the storytelling. Then I watch it a second time to analyze the CGI and, stay state of the art in that. So you get a fine eye. So I'm trying to watch this guy, but see his Iron Maiden shirt here. Watch carefully. Wait for it. Wait for it. Up. Boom. He didn't do this in one sitting. He did this episode. His comment cut over many days, or he went and during the ad interlude went and changed his shirt. So just weird things. And see, that's he's wearing that shirt when he's doing the ad for boot.dev. That's probably what it is. So he cut that ad session for his advertiser and spliced it in at a different time. See, isn't it weird? You just get this eye for that kind of stuff when watching videos because you've been analyzing it for way too long. Anyway, let's continue with our angry incel.
I'll tell you why. Because it's all smoke and mirrors. At the end of the
go.
day, that's all this is. They're not actually doing anything to genuinely fix Xbox. You can change the CEO, you can change a couple of studios, you can cut a couple out and buy a couple more, but at the end of the day, Microsoft's influence has rotted Xbox to its core. Game Pass itself has rotted Xbox to its core. And the only way that this company is ever going to get any better is if they break apart or break down. You know what? I think I can fully understand why people fell for Xbox's PR strategy. I think that people are just desperate.
No, I don't have energy for amateur analysis of PR. It's too agonizing. I can't listen to it.
Xbox kept trying to cover up their mistakes, spending more money every single time instead of actually fixing their
all right. Well,
peers,
so
laying off
you
people
got
and
here.
shutting.
This is legendary drops. So good channel. Love listening to them too. Even if I have the angry incel reaction to his content. But I'm gonna cut it off there because you can go. I'll link these episodes below. Make sure you watch them and go like and subscribe his channels as well so that I'm paying my dues for borrowing his content here. Let me scale this out a little bit. Let's get the show back on camera. All right, here, I'm not going to do the full camera straight. Well, maybe I'll do a little bit of it. Let me just adjust here. All right, so let's talk a little bit here. So you've seen, and I got a whole roster of angry incels I listen to do this stuff, and it just it gives me feeder material because I get to do reaction content. Here we go. But if I'm trying to really educate people and provide actual insight from the inside as to what's going on. And again, I'm not always right. One of the problems I've told you before is, right, you can't be on YouTube streaming even if you've got a lousy 650 subscribers. Smash the like button and subscribe. And then, you got to keep confidences in business. So I can't say, here's who I talk to and what I know. But I know everybody, and I've been in this industry a long time. And also it's just the experience of being in the business. It gives you a lot better clue about how to understand what's going on than being a consumer. The consumers get all confused about what it means. And so there's a sea change going on in the game industry, major one. I think it's a good thing. It's exciting. Change is always fun. It's always opportunity. The game business, and the other thing that kills me is game business is the entertainment business. Entertainment's supposed to make you happy and relaxed. You're not finding any games you like if you're this miserable bitching on YouTube about games all the time. You know. So it's the and the entertainment. One of the things required by entertainment is that it's new, it's novel, it's original. The same shit you get bored of. So, everybody's sick of the same console games with better and better production values. They're just sick of them, such that every one of these games is an absolute marvel of talent and computer science and technology and rendering. And there's every one of them's a multi-hundred billion work of science fiction. And to have these guys going, these games are sucky. Oh my God. Right. It's time for a change, right? Things are going to shift. And Microsoft going, they're making more money out there just watching people play our games than we're making selling them. What are we doing here, people? And I'll tell you the old timer thing. Remember, I made DirectX OS. I started the project. I made Microsoft a game company. I made your GPUs that everybody's using, wasting on artificial intelligence now. So I go back 30 years building the core technology and platforms, and I believed in Microsoft. There's a lot to hate about Microsoft, but I believed in the platform business. I believed in being a company that makes its living enabling other people to creating jobs, essentially creating innovation, making technology that enables everybody else to make a living. I really liked that vision. I believed in it at Microsoft. That was the vision DirectX was created with. The gamers we brought into Microsoft who made the first generation Xboxes were believers in that as well. But they also wanted to make games because making games is fun, right? Bad business, but fun, right? Or not entirely bad business. Just the reality of the game business is that it's a business. You want to make money in gaming. It's not all about making great games sometimes, which is unfortunate, right? My part, I only want to make great games. And unfortunately, a lot of the successes in the game business come from ruthless business people who don't care about games at all. Don't want to make games. They want to make money. That's why they're succeeding at it. Apple doesn't want to make games. They want to make money. That's why they're making more than Xbox and PlayStation combined. But the story I was going to tell you, the old timer story I was going to tell you from way back in the day, is that when all the Microsoft Asperger nerd gamers, who were making Windows, were living in our office working on the Windows operating system, and then we'd go home and if we after our 12-hour day and play some video games. Those guys all dreamed of making video games for a living and getting paid like they did at Microsoft instead of making Microsoft Office. They all loved the DirectX revolution. They all loved the idea of going, we're a game company now. We make DirectX. We're cool. We should make games. Let's talk Bill into letting us make games. And there were actually several waves of that even before DirectX started at Microsoft, and I witnessed it. Gabe Newell was one of them, right? At he was a very legendary product manager for Windows 3.0. So he was, one of Microsoft's better known geniuses at the era that I arrived, and I was working with him at Microsoft. And so all those guys like Gabe were like, oh, yeah, I'm going to make millions at Microsoft. I'm going to go make games for a living. And so Microsoft, the creating DirectX and making Microsoft a game platform caused all those tired working engineer employees going, I'm sick of working on Ole 2 and Microsoft Word. Ed Freeze, man, Microsoft Office. And he's like, oh, I want to make Halo, right? Can you blame him? So they all went, and that was Microsoft was made of those people. And a weird, or not a weird thing, a totally natural thing happened, which is they all said, let's justify getting paid and Microsoft salaries and getting Microsoft stock for making video games, which is a terrible business, especially when it's a passion project. Worst thing you can do is love games and try to make money at it. Um, Dumbest idea ever. Not totally true, but funny to say. And mostly true because of the rare exception to that statement, right? Most of the money in gaming is not made by good games. It's made by bad games. I wish it weren't true, but it is true. Um, so they all went, oh, I want to make games, and so it's natural to go, well, let's make a great enabling platform at our platform company, which is worth billions because we're a successful platform. We make the best development tools and enabling tools and so forth. To go, well, then let's go compete with all those developers by making games internally and publishing them ourselves. And on the one hand, a certain amount of that is a good thing because you can't make a good platform if you don't understand the customer you're making it for. So it's good to eat your own dog food. It's good that companies like Epic, who own the Epic Game Store, make a hit game or two. It's good that Valve, that owns the Valve Game Store, Steam, makes a hit game or two. Sure, their games consume 70 or 80% of all the money and all the oxygen in the room. It's one of the reasons their stores are successful. So you could say that on the one hand, let's use Epic as an example, because of course they recently had huge layoffs because even Fortnite can't make money apparently. The most successful free-to-play game in history, maybe other than Roblox, right? But the Epic Game Store, say what you will about it, to the extent that you can sell any games there, it's probably because Fortnite draws them, right? So, on the one hand, you could go, well, anybody who touches Fortnite never plays or buys another game, and the game is so freaking good that the Epic Game Store is a failure. On the other hand, it's extremely generous of Tim Sweeney and Epic to use the success of Fortnite as lead generation, to force everybody through the Epic Game Store to get Fortnite. That's very generous of them because they are creating a market that wouldn't otherwise exist for other lesser game developers who don't own a Fortnite franchise. And you could say the same of Valve. Gabe, on the one hand, he's taken most of the money off the table from his store. On the other hand, hey, he didn't have to use the huge popularity of Half-Life and Team Fortress to create enabling market for a bunch of other indie game developers to have an opportunity to sell. He didn't have to do that. It's incremental money to him compared to the money he's making off his hit franchises, but nice thing to do for the industry. So, and I want to give you that perspective when I say, yeah, so being in a certain amount of being in the game business, making hit franchises is something that any great platform or console probably should do some of. But it should be probably very narrow and focused because you want that free market competition. You want that 30% margin business. And then the thing Apple showed is there was another 30% to get in all the advertising dollars from letting a free market compete. So the weird thing is, in some sense, again, it's really funny and painful hearing that, the angry Encels in their mom's basement going, Microsoft's greedy. I go, well, actually, they're only taking 30% of every dollar in gaming, and Apple and Google take 70% because not only do they take a cut of all the revenue sold on mobile, but because they made it a free market platform and don't make any games themselves, the games all have to compete with each other to get presence. So they all give that, they get their 70 cents on the dollar, and then they spend 30 to 40% of it buying advertising from Google and Apple to promote their games. So they only keep 20, 30% of the margin on the game anyway, and Apple and Google pocket it all as 70, just 100% margin, pure cash, with no studios, no console subsidies. I mean, Google doesn't even, Apple has to take the hardware risk. Google doesn't even do that, right? So Google has the ultimate, ideal, optimal gaming business model. They're the ultimate game console. They're the dream Microsoft only aspires to. While Microsoft is going, we'll take a lousy 30%. We wouldn't dream of allowing advertising on our platform because we're really invested in competing with all of you game studios with our own studios. And then we'll subsidize the Xbox and sell it at a loss to you to the tune of $20 billion in cost to us over the years. So yeah, it's fun to call evil capitalist giants greedy, but Microsoft has consistently behaved totally irrationally in the game business. Like it's just a bunch of Encel nerd Microsoft nerds who wanted to make games and play Game Studio and talked Bill and later Satya into letting them do it because, that's maybe the funny thing in the early days is the number one reason. Sorry, that's not the right way to phrase it. One of the dominant reasons Microsoft, Bill Gates would have said, sure, let's go make a game console, was all the people were leaving Microsoft after the release of Windows 95. They were all burned out and exhausted. And that was Microsoft's brain trust. That was the definition of what made them Microsoft successful, was this huge body of highly trained people. And so Microsoft would often have teams and projects that were just, yeah, go fuck around and we'll pretend you're really going to make a business. The Advanced Technology Group was one, retirement homes for vesting engineers, because Microsoft wanted to keep those people around in that era. They were that valuable and didn't want them or wanted them to go and recover from being burned out from having shipped Windows 95. So in that era, not only was Bill enamored with the idea of getting a game console on everybody's TV set from Micro Windows OS in everybody's living room, which was a big passion for him, but his whole company was full of nerds who wanted to make games. And it's like, well, I'll keep them all if I do that. So, one of the things that is seldom said about why Microsoft would lose $20 billion subsidizing consoles, why they would keep money losing studios around, is because certainly in the early days, they had a whole lot of highly valued employees they wanted to keep who wanted to make games. And so that was a way of keeping them, and it was a way of recruiting talent into the company, was that they had that cool brand for the people they were trying to hire, and they hired a lot of valuable people. Again, times have changed, haven't they? And the game business has changed. So it's not Ed Freeze and Stuart Mulder hiring Bungie and making Halo in Microsoft's offices in the campus building with Microsoft employees. Studios in their own little sheltered halos all over the world with no direct contact with Microsoft's core businesses or offices, and no or little cross pollination of talent into the rest of the organization. It's not like the guys working in the game studios are shifting over back and forth into roles in Azure, or the burned out Azure guys are going to go work on a games title for once in a while. So that's all gone too. So times have changed. Even that justification doesn't work anymore. So Microsoft Xbox evolved into a business model that never made any sense, that was never greedy, that was always massively subsidized for brand and ego and employee desire, incel nerd desire reasons, unrelated to anything resembling good business sense. Because over in Apple and Google land, they just churned out shitty mobile games on a massive scale with nobody in charge of gaming at all, and made billions in pure profit margin on shit games the entire time this was going on. So it's completely unfair and inconsistent with the facts to claim that the reason for Microsoft's studio failures was incompetent leadership or making bad games or greed. Because, yeah, they're a big evil company, sure, and of course they always have a profit motive, but even if you understand that, very little of Xbox history for 25 years is just not the thing they did does not correlate to good business behavior. It's not consistent with the capitalist ideal of greed and money making, because they lost a shitload of money for years in a business model they always knew wasn't a brilliant one. But boy, did their employees love it for a long time, right? And boy, did it have some good brand value uh, for being, because Microsoft was always seen as a greedy, evil, um, uh, not a non-customer attentive company for many, many years. And for a long time, Xbox was the one thing that people loved about Microsoft, and that had a lot of brand value you just couldn't buy. Yeah, they're really struggling with it now, so it's got a problem now. But for a long time, that was the case. So the interesting thing going back is one of the things you never hear is, look, if you're inside Xbox and Microsoft when it happened, the truth was the way Xbox evolved never made any business sense for Microsoft, was never super strategically aligned, even in its heyday. Except that it satisfied, it was, and that's why I formulated this. Bill was like constantly going on about how do I get a Windows OS in the home? And I said, you make a console. Consoles do it, Bill. Not set top boxes, not deals with Comcast. You make a Windows console, Bill. And it worked. That was Bill said, I want to be in everybody's living room. We Xbox DirectX people said, then you make a console, Bill. That was it. That worked. That made sense. The how that worked and everything else that came with it, not clearly the best business interest of Microsoft, but Bill told us he wanted to be in everybody's home, and we said this is making a successful console will do it. Came at great cost, but it worked. So if I were there today, I go, hey, Bill's gone. Microsoft's in everybody's living room. There's still, whether that's relevant anymore, who knows? Because I would argue one of the biggest disasters for Xbox, ironically, again, they love going, oh, they're incompetent because they're not making magically great games in a hugely competitive market or some bullshit. Actually, the incompetence was the incompetent leadership at Microsoft that caused Xbox's real downfall was Microsoft failing at mobile. Think about that. The reason that the billions in gaming went to mobile and to mobile business models is Microsoft, is that's where the game industry grew up. And Microsoft badly whiffed at execution on mobile. And because Microsoft whiffed on mobile, Xbox ended up on an island on the obsolete console platform business model with no business bridge at all into the modern or the new thing, which is mobile gaming. So it was the failure of Microsoft at mobile that actually marooned Xbox's business model and made it's the failure of Microsoft in mobile that made that of anything else Microsoft did that made the Xbox a outlying business model. Because had Microsoft succeeded to any significant extent in mobile, their future Xbox association and brand would have made total sense, would have made a ton of money, would have had a clear pathway, would have had a whole profitable business model inherited from doing the same thing Google and Android did, and Google and Apple did in mobile gaming. That's where the missing piece went. Is oops, they fucked up at mobile. Um, so then you go, okay, well, now we're in the future. And so you go, what are you going to do with it? Well, Satya's totally right. It's AI. It's totally, you cannot like it. Again, it drives me crazy because you get just, I'll do a riff on AI later. But AI is the future. It's totally the future of gaming. It's inevitably the future. It's maybe the biggest thing ever to hit. And so all the angry Encels going, AI slop, and we're going to shit on companies, and we're going to label games that used AI. All of that is toxic, regressive, backwards, going to get the game companies and the game studios they love killed and out of business if they do that to them. They need, if you love your games and you love your game business, you need those game studios to stop trying to churn out games manually with thousands of people and $500 million budgets because they can't make any freaking money, which is why they're all losing their jobs right now. And if those studios had gone, oh crap, we're going to use AI, we're going to churn this stuff out with higher production values and more content with less people and less time, then they might have made a profit, enough margin to justify their businesses and sticking around. So you better be cheering for all those guys to use AI to produce next generation new types of games, new genre, new looks, new styles of play, original freaking content, which you keep saying you want. It's going to be produced by the game companies and the game industry going, hey, we've got innovative uses for AI for creativity, not just, searching for better deals on hotels more easily. um, or coding, right? Coding. So you would think the game industry would have a huge era of pioneering and innovation to do in AI. And Xbox, because of their alignment with Satya, would take a huge lead in it. If the angry incels would just let them, just give them permission, say yes, go do it. We won't reject an AI game or the use of AI out of hand, because if you're doing that, then guess what? Then they're all just losing their jobs, which is what you're insisting on they're doing. Then you're throwing up your hands going, why? Whether they're all incompetent managers for not hiring thousands of people to make $500 million games like everybody else in the market, so saturated with them that we call them shitty games when they're works of science fiction. And at no point does it click in their head that none of that makes any freaking business sense. Nobody can make a business work thinking that way. They're in their mom's basement just going, I'm smarter than Elon Musk at making money. Listen to me. They'd have no idea what they're talking about. So all the angry incels, you want games, you better be cheering Microsoft and Satya and Asha to AI the shit out of the Xbox, which doesn't mean that Microsoft won't do, even in AI, as they're demonstrating, absolutely making dumb mistakes. But at least it would be the right direction, because guaranteed it's the future. There's no 10 years from now, nobody will remember that anybody liked to play games that were handmade anymore. It's going to be forgotten. It's like that. Nobody will ever, there won't be a single person on YouTube going, I'm so angry that they're all 1000% AI generated by a kid in his mom's basement made the biggest hit MMO with millions of players using a chat GPT. Right? That's how it's going to be, something like that in 10 years. I guarantee it. And nobody's going to remember that they ever bitched about it at all. Those will all be forgotten morons, and nobody will admit that they ever objected to the use of AI in game development. And the game companies that adopt it first, including Microsoft, Xbox, are the best chance of surviving this market transition. Anybody who hesitates, anybody who chokes, anybody who listens to the angry incel saying, "No, I don't want AI slop in my game. You're stealing it. It's going to go out of business, and they're not going to make games ever again." That's what you're going to get. So anyway, what is it? 6:30 in the morning, 7 a.m. I've been doing my own angry incel bit. I'm going to go get a cup of coffee, and then I'm going to come out here and I'm going to fire up all 5 of these computers on AI and generate just a ton of amazing gaming technology for you all, because I got the memo, baby. I am using AI to generate the most amazing game technology you guys will ever see, but I'll talk about that another day. So hey, don't listen to me. I didn't say go take that guy. Listen to the other Alex's advice. Go make games by hand with stone bronze age tools. Keep it up. I'll use the AI. You go do that. Don't worry, it's okay. Don't listen to me. I don't know anything. Sorry. Anyway, I'm Alex St. John, aka the Saint. You guys have a good, smash the like button and subscribe. I'll see you in the next episode. Remember, mark this episode, because 10 years in the future, remember, you heard it from me first. I told you first. I told you the truth. I told you where it's really going to go, because I know where it's going to go, because I'm part of that future. I have been for decades. And the pundits you hear out there, they have no idea what they're talking about. They're hiding in mom's basement with no clue, ranting about stuff that is naive, engaged in naive business advice, having no experience at all in any of the subjects they're babbling about. But they're fun to watch, right? So I'll link their channels so you can go click it, because I watch them, I like and subscribe them. Just saying. But they don't know what they're talking about. I do. So you guys all have a great day, and I'll see you on the next episode of The Saint. Take care.